going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. We won't rise with the Pledge of Allegiance. It's kind of a different feeling. Welcome, Gay. We'll start with any public input on our work session agenda items. Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to agenda item number 3, and that is welcoming Gay and listening to our child nutrition update. Dr. Nold, if there's any introduction other than that you'd like to do?
All right, well, thank you. So I've got some news hot off the press, too, as I wrap this up a little bit. But just some updates of things that are happening in our world. A year ago, the big, beautiful bill, SNAP changes went into effect, and that started impacting us now as of July 1 this year. And so I kind of look at the little ticker at DSS all the time and seeing where we're at with the different numbers of individuals that are approved for SNAP or that are qualified for SNAP, households and individuals. In July of 25, you can see that we had 9,189 households, over 17,000 students or individuals, because this is 0 to 18. And now this year, 1 year later, you can see that that has dropped. We have just over 8,700 students or households again, and just over 16,000 individuals. That difference now shows a drop of 5.74%. And it's been a concern I've had since that was announced back a year ago, because now we've got a lot of these people who always qualified for SNAP benefits and didn't have to complete a meal application or anything. They are being impacted by that. And actually, we're seeing that as we start looking at some of our numbers, and you guys can see this, I guess, from where you're at. But I gave you some updated numbers as of Friday, where we're at with SNAP numbers and completing free and reduced applications. And so SNAP, it shows again that it's a huge drop for us. That comparison in our district, we're down 9.1%. Where before on that slide, previous slide, it was 5.74 in Minnehaha. So I think it's going to be a bigger impact on our students in the district. And then I've just got a comparison for you to see where we're at with the ongoing processing of the free and reduced applications right now. And actually, myself and one of my staff, our student account specialists, hammered out about 700 meal applications over the weekend. We had a mission, and we decided we're going to keep working on it. So we got a lot more taken care of and approved. But you can see that as of Friday morning when I ran this, we had a total of 6,824 students approved for free and reduced. That's not, and in comparison to last year, at the end of the year, we were right around 11, almost 12,000 students. So we know we've got a long way to go, but this is that crunch time where we're getting all the applications in. I looked at something this morning, and we have 2,715 students on that 30-day carryover. Their families still have not yet applied. And so we know that we'll be communicating that out rather frequently over the next 30 days to make sure that they know that let's get your applications in, and trying really hard to work with families on that. What we're running into, we have about 230 applications we can't process right now because these families have gone and put 0 income, and we're trying to communicate with them. Actually, last week I went out and got a cell phone for our department because that way we can text and see if we can get them to call us back or communicate. But the 0 incomes, the state kind of, years ago, they allowed us to kind of bypass, look at 0 income, don't question anybody. Last year, they made a note in our training that we needed to start asking families, can you at least tell us how you pay your light bill or your phone bill or whatever it is? And so 0 income, we do try and get that done. So those applications are kind of sitting in limbo, and I said, let's just figure out how we can communicate to the families on this piece, just so we can try and have something done before Thursday. It's not going to happen, but we'll do as many as we can. So that's a little bit about some of where we're at with our free and reduced numbers to date. Just want to share with you a little bit about the Angel Fund information and unpaid meals.
One question
Yes.
on the free, they give 30 days for the application to be able to get in. When's that 30 days start?
First day of school. And so the 30th day of school, I believe, is October 9th. and that's when those families fall off. And we really put a huge push on that to the building administrators, social workers, counselors, saying, hey, we've got these families, we don't know if they qualify, but could you at least help? There's some really good people that help us out with trying to get applications completed. So, Angel Fund information then. All students are starting the year off with zero debt. I'm trying to think of who reached out to Dr. Knoll, the name of the person, but reached out and said we want to make sure everybody starts at zero debt. We had about, with some families that had left the district, and then with the unpaid meal charges, it was about $22,000 that we had that they made a commitment they're going to find a way to get the funds in. We've been getting donations from that group, and that's a nice thing, so families can start out at least the year that, hey, everybody's at $0 or they have money in their account. So we'll know that as those that don't have money in their account, some things will start growing, but we'll be working on that. Just updating, last year we had 494 of those students whose families applied for free and reduced meal benefits. They did not qualify for it, but they were in the 185 to 200% range of federal poverty guidelines. And those kids got free meals all last year. And so that was a big thing. We're projecting an increase in that already. Looking at some of the denials, I haven't run all the incomes and looking at that. I'll do that in my leisure. But figuring out how many are in that range to see that percentage there change, because I'm guessing we probably could be closer to 600 or more of those students. But good news is a few weeks ago at the awards banquet where Jesse and Mark Fonder were at, Jesse Severson and Mark Fonder, Mark gave a verbal commitment that, hey, we're going to make the announcement again as far as doing $100,000. And so I'll just need to set that meeting up so we can get that coordinated and decide when they want to roll that out and do the announcement. Anything that we've started taking in since July 1, we're counting that towards that match in funds. And so that's kind of exciting to be able to share, how long can they continue to do this? But it is a huge help to these families. When you think of 494 students, what that debt could have been otherwise for people there. And one thing that we do when they accept donor money, we block their accounts for any a la carte sales. In their notification letter, we state, if you're accepting these funds, this is donor money, so we're not going to let you turn around and have your children buy anything, I don't call it frivolous, but extra. And so that we're making sure that we're putting the donor money to good use. And I think that's been well taken. We do have some families that say, nope, we'll go ahead and pay for our meals. We want our kids to get the extras. And so they must be able to afford it at that point in time. So, questions on that? Okay. Just kind of going over our goals and priorities. Food quality, we're going to continue to fine-tune our meal preparation and delivery times for all of our elementary schools. That's going to be a continued work in progress. I don't think we'll ever get complacent with that. We just need to always stay focused on that. And one of the things there, again, is I'm meeting with our cooks and drivers tomorrow and talking about how do we back up the times and send you out on your routes, the drivers out on their routes, so you're not arriving to school half an hour before meal service. Where they've got some downtime. We want to get that food as close to the time that students are eating in those buildings. SNAP certifications, that's just always ongoing for us, making sure we're following up on free and reduced meal benefits. And then kind of excited to share with you that this year we are going to start piloting in early September over at Sonia Sotomayor. We're going to offer a second option of the day and for the meal entree. And so it'll be a sandwich of the day each day. We'll do like maybe a turkey sandwich, beef sandwich, ham sandwich, and rotate it out. We'll play with our numbers. We watch projections all the time on lunch counts, meal counts. And so the kids can have that option to have that versus what the meal of the day might be, the hamburger, the chicken nuggets, or whatever that might be. I'm assuming that'll be an easy place to roll it out. And as we work through any potential kinks there, I want to start rolling it out in other schools also later on this year, as many as possible as that works out. And you might have heard me say the word ham. Our elementary students haven't had ham or pork items on their menus for a number of years. And I'm trying to make sure that we're being compliant with civil rights and different things with religious groups. So, because we should not be following any one religion we are required to follow all religions. And I Googled it, there's over 4,000 religions known in the United States. So it would be a little hard to manage a menu. And so we are having that as an option on our menus. I had a couple of administrators say, "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" And it's like, we will have options for those choices again. In this case, they'll have a sandwich of the day they can choose from, or the regular meal of the day. But on our breakfast for lunch day during the month, we are going to pork sausage links and egg patties, and they'll have the choice where they can decline the sausage links and get the egg patties in place. And so we're still making sure that everyone has a choice, and by incorporating choices, that makes it a lot nicer for students. I think I shared with Dr. Knoll back when we were still in Bismarck 24 years ago. And then before that, when my kids were in elementary school, they had the same kind of setup in the school lunch program where there was a satellite kitchen. They didn't have kitchens in their elementary schools. My kids already had 3 choices a day at their elementary lunches. So it's like, if they could do it back then, I got to figure out how to do it now and give those kids more choices. And I think that would help with increasing participation. The other additional goals, customer service to customer experience. I've been using that term a lot in the last few years, that we want the students having an experience with us when they come through the serving line. And what I'm really excited about, we're doing additional training for everybody involved, and for the first time ever, a group of people that never had training but were serving food on our lines. The ESPs that come and fill in for 15 minutes, half an hour, where they'd been told, yes, you're going to go serve, but not knowing and understanding any of the background of why we're doing this. Actually, someone said to me this morning, they said they found out that they're not following Gay Anderson's rules, because it's not Gay Anderson's rules, it's USDA rules. And so talking about, food safety, those different things, why we have to make sure that you have to have a fruit or vegetable on a tray, understanding that. And to be honest with you, I was tickled. It was very well received. I had a lot of nice emails coming back. Excuse me. People saying we never knew, we never understood the program that we have been expected to serve. So we know that, and that's required training, and it's going to be continuing on. So I think that's a real positive start for these people that will be helping out serving. Next thing is piloting a hot breakfast option at our elementary schools. And we're going to implement that at Annie Sullivan late September or early October. I kind of shared that when I met with you guys at a board meeting back in March or so, talking about there's potential that some of that's coming, which I'll update you in a few minutes on that. But this hot breakfast option, we're looking at trying to do like some egg bites, maybe egg omelets. I'm looking for probably getting a countertop oven that we'll figure the logistics, and maybe have to add a little bit of extra time for somebody's hours or whatever, so they can help get that all prepped and ready to go. That is our school that has the largest breakfast program. And some of my staff said, well, why do you want to start there? I figured, well, we can work out all the kinks with the largest one, and it's going to be just smooth sailing on it off the way down. So that's kind of that piece. And then just planning for these coming changes from USDA with our meal pattern, food pyramid, that's going to include changes in food preparation. And so part of that, actually there was just a press release, USDA release this at noon today, where a number of people from my association attended, my school board, or my board association. They were meeting out in DC with Secretary Brooke Rollins and Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Dr. Ben Carson with this announcement that got rolled out. But they talked about some of the coming changes. But the School Nutrition Association has done a really good job keeping people informed about what's going on. And in this note, or this document up here, it talks about really we are the healthiest meals that schools or children have each day. Typically, they are the healthiest meals. Nobody else is regulated the way we are. I've worked in the hospital industry, even in a restaurant hospital, I've seen it, but school meals are highly regulated. Colleges don't even have that. So we are continuing to work on reducing sodium. This year we're looking at reduced sugars in our breakfast and everything, talking about some different things. And USDA is urging governors to sign a voluntary state-level pledge to build upon federal standards. I will say this is my opinion, and from what I've been hearing from some of my partners out in D.C., that they think if we don't sign on to this, or if we sign on this pledge and don't comply with it completely, we could start seeing a loss in some of our reimbursement, like it's the 9 cent, Cameron, what's that? It was like a bonus reimbursement we got for having compliant menus. I can't think of the exact name for that. So it's like, okay, boy, we've got to be careful with going on that. And I did share this with Dr. Nold a few weeks ago, knowing that we're quite sure our governor's going to sign off on it, but we want to make sure we can have some good education on the fees and sharing information out. This is trends that we got from the members across the country. We have increased costs and very tight budgets. We know that I like to joke, we no longer make pennies, and so I have to figure out how I can save pennies also at the same time. And so, 99% of respondents reported to needing more funding. I am expecting that we will have a small loss again this year over last year in our budget. We're okay with that at this point. We had some spend down on things to do, so that's okay there, but still I know I have to tighten things up a little bit. And then also the federal reimbursement rate is really kind of insufficient to cover what we do, since we have to cover the cost of everything. And that's, our water, our lights, our disposables, anything like that. So it all comes together in that. And right now that federal reimbursement rate for like a free student is going to be roughly about $4.82 this year. So that's where we have all our labor, our food, supplies, and everything included in it. And obviously, we all know that food costs have gone significantly up over the last year or so, and we're continuing to see those things rise. So this is something, just some information. I think it's nice to share this with you so you're all aware of it. We've got a lot of action alerts that are going to be coming out from our association that, if you guys would agree to it, I'd love to have you sign on those when the time comes. Some additional resources here. This is just showing the cost of breakfast, and this is kind of where some of this announcement that came out today is going to impact us as far as looking at more proteins at breakfast. But when you look at the average cost of breakfast in the diagram, you can see it. A total meal cost with food and labor and everything is like at $2.70 on the first one, and that's without the protein added. I'm all about, I think protein's important, but we need some funding to cover that protein. When you add the protein, we're looking at an increased cost where it would be around $3.20 for our food and labor and everything. I'm one who believes if I don't get my yogurt or my string cheese in the morning, I'm going to be hungry by 10. And so it is important to have that, but when we're looking at that, it is going to impact our dollars. And so there's a sample template for, this is our Public Policy and Legislative Action Committee to governors, just talking about some different things, some concerns they have, that you have that information that you can look at, and talking about how we can partner together a little bit better. And then this USDA announcement that came out today. And so I tried logging on to listen to it. I got just the gist of it, but then there was a news release that came out that I sent over to Dr. Nold and Cameron before the meeting here. They're announcing a Harvest to Hallways initiative to invest in child nutrition programs. And with this, some of the details or highlights in that piece, they're talking about definitely wanting to make America healthy again. And again, we're all about wanting to do our, give kids better food anytime. I would never argue about that. We also have to work at different things, the setup we have. And so they're connecting schools with farmers and ranchers in their own communities, investing in kitchens and equipment for school nutrition professionals to prepare real food, and cutting down the barriers. So there is an announcement. They're looking at probably about $50 million is going to go for investing into school kitchens. Don't know what part of that we would be able to have, but we would definitely be needing that if we're supposed to be making some changes with cooking on site there, especially at breakfast. And those things will be coming. They're talking about more local foods to schools, getting protein on at breakfast, those variables there. And then also pushing this to make it happen a lot faster than slower. So wanting to get us on board with the 2025 dietary guidelines for Americans. And so as this is coming out, I have not heard yet, but usually there's a comment period when we have these things come out, when USDA announces what those are. And every comment has to be read by the folks at USDA. I'm one who's known to send in multiple comments because I don't want to lump it all together, because I figure now they can read more instead of giving them my whole page and a half of whatever it is. And so I kind of encourage people on that. If we know there's some key talking points, we'd love to share that with you when those come. The goal originally was to have over 300,000 comments submitted during this comment period. Actually, our association now is being told by some of the folks at USDA, if we want to try and keep some of our changes held back, we probably need about 500,000 done. Typically, we have about a 120-day comment period when changes like this are announced. And so I haven't heard for sure what that comment period is right now, but I'll definitely keep people informed on this so that I can hopefully tap into some extra emails going out to Congress or USDA. And with that, questions? Mm-hmm.
If they're cooking on site, and then number two, the appliances for the schools in terms of their kitchen, and maybe you're not even going there quite yet because you want to see, you know, how it looks. But I just want people to know that there will be an impact, or potentially an impact.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when I reported out at the board meeting back in March or so, I had some thoughts on that, you know, as far as costs for labor, equipment and all that into our kitchens. It could, I mean, we're looking at potentially about 350,000. That's a soft number, I'm guessing. I'm spitballing, to be very honest, because once I get more details, but I know it's going to have an impact. Labor, I think, at least in each of our elementary schools, I would need to find, if this is just starting with breakfast, because I think we can manage, I know we can manage the lunch piece unless they start forcing that to be other implementations, but I do believe that with breakfast we can make it happen with, you know, someone maybe a couple hours a day in each of those schools, so they can help get the breakfast ready, served, and cleaned up. But yeah, the other piece though is we'll have to find how, you know, we send breakfast out today for tomorrow typically, and it's all shelf stable. We don't have the proper refrigeration or freezers in those locations, so I'd have to kind of figure out, okay, what do we have there? Is it going to impact electrical? You know, some different things there.
Well, and then just the cost of food.
The cost of food. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gay, by the way. I'd like to hear more about the pledge. It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it almost sounds like that's a way of getting states to commit to something before it's actually becoming part of the law or the regulations. So I'm really interested in that. And what happens if we don't sign the pledge as a state? If, you know, the governor would for some reason decide not to do that, is that just more of a political thing, or are there any consequences to not signing it?
I haven't heard. But I do believe our governor would be inclined to sign, unless we can. I mean, I think we need to have some information sent to him based on, I would like to say from the School Nutrition Association, because I do trust the information that we provide. Our staff at SNA headquarters out in DC, they are literally have their fingers on the pulse of what's happening and know what's going on. They've been in every congressional office multiple times. They know who we are out in DC, and they call, USDA folks actually call our staff and to reach out to say, hey, how do you need help? How can we help you with this? Because they also understand some of these changes are going to be really hard. I don't know what kind of implications would be if we don't sign or the governor wouldn't sign. But I think we also want to just, I know we'd be good stewards and play along too.
Of course. Well, I guess what happens if we do sign? Do you have Do we have a detailed list? Is it all in that pledge, what we'd be required to do and what we'd be?
I can send you guys out a copy of that pledge. I'll get that email to Dr. Nold, and so you guys can see all that. It's like a 3-page pledge, and it talks about the whole food. It talks about more proteins at breakfast. It does talk about whole milk, that schools should be, we have the option to serve whole milk this year. I did share with Dr. Nold back last spring what my feelings were. 2 parts. One is we would have to revamp our menus because you still have to meet calories and nutritional guidelines. And so that changes because calories are going to go up with whole milk. And the other piece is the cost impact. Has a huge piece. It plays a huge piece in that with the dollar amounts that we spend every day in just milk cartons alone is significant. And there actually we're looking at whole milk, I think, was 2.5 cents more a carton than what we're paying for some of our other cartons. May not sound like a lot, but when you're buying milk, that adds up significantly. And so the cost factor would be that. So that's why I wanted Dr. Nold to be aware of it in case, why aren't we serving whole milk? And actually, we are kind of the district in the state that kind of lead what that production is at the dairy. So I don't know how many schools are actually offering whole milk this coming year. But there's a number of things that are in it. And also talking about more whole grains. And they're talking about 100% whole grain. So what we serve, any of the grains that we offer, are 51% whole grain on our menus. Now, 100% whole grains, if you can picture, there's a lot more change in that product. Very few people eat 100% of all their grains in whole grains on a regular basis. There's nothing, I mean, it's a healthier product, yes, it's more expensive. But how many kids would find that where they would probably not like it? Even my dietitian, she goes, I don't eat 100% whole grains. She goes, how do you do this? And even the availability for us isn't there right now with manufacturing. So some of this has to take time.
Right. Well, and I think that any of us who've been to a grocery store and shopped in regular aisles and shopped in the health food aisles would know where the more expensive food is, right? So, I mean, even though this pledge sounds good on the surface and sounds like, oh, we want healthier foods, we want our kids to be healthier, we want our schools to be serving healthy food and whole food and all that. When you get down to it, what does that really mean? And I guess my question now is, do we have enough time to get our concerns to the governor before he's going to be asked to sign this pledge and commit us to something that's going to cost a lot of money?
I do believe all the governor's offices have received this.
So he could sign it anytime.
Yeah, so I'm not sure of that, but I guess I'd be more than happy to put some talking points together too, just to say, let's just be educated on this before we would sign off on it, because then once they sign off on it, they want the districts to sign off.
Mm-hmm.
A key piece of that, though, even if it goes, whether the governor signs off or not, if it goes into effect at a national level, it's still in effect for all states.
Yeah.
So regardless if the governor signs off or not.
Right, but then at least it's gone through the comment period and, all the thorough vetting. This is kind of making that happen without it going through that period where we have a chance to comment. So I think that's where my main concern comes from, is really rushing into something that has extreme consequences. Mm-hmm. And just for our, on the national scale, we're small, right? Mm-hmm. So if these changes are going to cost at least $350,000 for our school district, and I mean, I know I'm kind of mushing things together here, but the $50 million for the entire nation to implement these changes, it would be very little. Yeah, 50 million sounds like a lot, mm-hmm. but not when you spread it out throughout the whole country. That's a really thin slab of peanut butter.
Yeah, and I don't know if that would be through grant processes too. And so as soon as I see that anything might be coming up, I'm honestly going to put in the request and get the approval. Hopefully that if it comes in the forms of grants, that we're applying for it as soon as possible, because that money is going to go through and get burned fast, I think, in all the states. Mm-hmm. So. Go ahead, yeah.
Ways to handle all of the different requirements and all the changes in the law, and yet provide new opportunities for our kids with meals. I mean, the innovative things that you come up with. So I want to thank you for that, because calling their eating their customer experience just puts a whole different spin on it too, because we all know that the breakfast that kids get at school, for some of these kids, it's the last meal that they've had was school lunch, and then this is the first meal that they're having, you know, after a lot of hours at home. So I want to thank you for that. Then I want to know what kind of magic wand you have to figure out, just with the increase in the price of food, how are we ever going to figure out how to be compliant and yet at the same time stay somewhere around a budget? I mean, I'm just saying, wow, what a job that you have, because we all know how food prices have gone crazy, and I know that you buy different food than I buy at the grocery store. But I imagine that the food price increase has hit your suppliers as well, as far as the increase in just basics. And so I worry about that. And so I'm really amazed at how you're going to keep all these plates spinning in the air at the same time. So
I'm not sure if they are, but thank you. Actually, I have worked with these vendors for many, many years. They know who I am. And I'm not afraid to go in and say, come on, what can you do to do something better with this price or whatever. We actually just switched out our chemical system program and found out that, knowing we're going to save money, but I found out today when staff are now washing dishes for the first time, we're burning through the chemical and something's not right. And the service person, when called, said to my office staff that, well, they're going to have to wait. They're not important. We've got other people we got to reach first. And I called my contact and I said, you told me we're going to be #1 on the list, and I want somebody here in these schools today. And it's happening. I mean, so some of those things pushing on the pricing. Two other things that probably would be good for you to know, tied in with costs. We've never done just a separate produce bid in the past. And I did this produce bid specifically just for all the produce that we use. And we used to put a lot of money of our USDA foods money into, it's called Department of Defense favors, and it's all food that's supposedly all Buy American. Because we also have to be at a 10% mark of Buy American or less, moving to 8% for next year. So like our produce is a big significant factor there. Well, this produce bid, we've had some horrible experiences with some of our produce in the last couple of years. Short dates, it's coming in, and we're paying quality money for this stuff, it's coming in short dated. And it's like, no, we need to have a better quality product. So I really believe that we will see some changes in the quality of the produce district-wide, because we are now with a different company. And they also are keeping us, they said, if I call, they're going to jump. And I hope. And then the other piece with that too is, one thing that I informed building elementary principals with at their admin meeting, just wanted to let them know. I found out we have some schools that absolutely, tardies come in, and these kids aren't getting breakfast, and it's like my staff are saying no because it's no longer breakfast time. And so I have made it very clear, even if it's 5 minutes before lunch, I really don't care. If the kid's hungry, we're going to feed them. Send them on down, and that keeps some of those unhealthier options that they might store in their drawers to give students something. So I hope with that we'll probably see some breakfast participation numbers go up. But that's that customer experience, and that's feeding kids, and that's what our job is. So don't say no.
Speaking of produce, sorry, it's scary now almost with all the food recalls and everything that's going on, from eggs to lettuce to name the food product. How are you assured by your suppliers that the food that we're getting is safe?
So 2 ways. I'm on a national food recall list that I get updates. And if it's something that I know would be something likely for schools, hone in on that. But also our suppliers now, they know that if we purchase something, I'm trying to think, but last year we had something that was recalled, and the supplier called and said, okay, if you have any, it's like maybe corn dogs or something that's questionable, you shouldn't be using that. So they literally have to call and speak to somebody at each location. And then we pull that so we can get the credit back on that, because they know with code numbers and dates and everything when things are manufactured, food traceability is amazing. And produce especially, you can trace all your produce back to where it came from the farm. And the good thing is, again, I'm supposed to be buying American. A lot of those food recalls this summer might have come from a country to the south of us. So.
One more important message, since we're working kind of backwards on this, goes back to the SNAP, the SNAP qualifications and the number of applicants. I hope the message gets out there that the true reduction is a result of the qualification or the application change as opposed to what the true needs are in the community. Those are two very different pieces, and it could be viewed as we have fewer people qualifying for, SNAP because of less applicants and not getting to the root cause of why we have fewer applicants. Those are two very different stories, number one. And then number two, thank you, Gabe, for keeping track of that so that those angel investors that want to see that all kids are fed can make up that gap and that difference. And that's where the story, where one story ends, another begins, that we as a district continue that outreach that all kids are getting fed.
Well, I have to give kudos to Deanne's office when they send out messages for us, because they get that message out quite often when I go, hey, we need a refresh on getting people to fill out applications, and that communication piece is huge. So it's a lot of people within this district that are doing that.
Absolutely, and that our external strategic partners, a few of which may be here today, can also help with that story and work with Deanne and others.
Couple things just to highlight on it. A big piece that I hope you heard throughout the whole process is the customer service. And as we go through with our story this year of our kids, our students, and our kids and our future, that's truly a big part of it. And I think you heard Gay say that my kids used to be able to, and some of those things that we're going to make sure that these kids get those same opportunities. And to go through last year implementing where we had some of the foods prepared at some closer sites. Some of the middle schools would prepare for an elementary close to them, and that takes a little more time and effort at those middle schools, but it does provide a hot lunch then, a much more recent hot lunch for those kids at those elementaries. The choices, being able to give now elementary, because high school has had those choices for a while, and then to middle school and now to the elementary to be able to provide those choices, all of which is happening with increased costs. To be able to provide a lot of those things, but truly to go back and give that customer service experience so that our kids are well taken care of, I think that's a significant benefit for our student population. So working through that part of it. Also to clarify, the $350,000, it's not for a new chef. It is definitely for the equipment that would go in there and some different things of that nature. We got some calls from west of the river last year when they thought we were hiring a $350,000 new chef, and that was not the case. We were hiring a chef and a lot of other equipment due to some of the changes that happened, all of which adds up to additional costs. And when you're not working on a very large budget, especially when it's so cost prohibitive and these things come in new, the protein piece at breakfast, that's a 19% cost just in and of itself increase. And you can't pass that directly on to the students. So an incredible job that Gay and her team does. She is also very well respected nationally, not just locally, but nationally, and is often asked, matter of fact, was maybe not going to be here today because she's going to be out testifying and speaking with some of those individuals at the national level. But she's very well respected and does go out and represent our community and our state very well that way as well. So kudos to our food service and especially the appreciation of the work that they're doing to make sure our kids get a great experience.
I have to say, I had this panic attack last week because they're saying, we need you in DC next Monday. I'd fly out Sunday, and then if you can stay another day and meet with Thune, if we can get a meeting with you. And I sent this email to Dr. Nolan Cameron going, this is meeting with Secretary Rollins and Bobby Kennedy and all this. That would have been at that meeting. And then when I called and I said, okay, do we have enough people coming? And they said, you know what, we can't get you in front of Thune again because he's busy. And I said, okay, I have to take a pass. So, because it's like the week before school, being gone 2 days, oh my gosh. But Yeah, thanks for those nice words, Dr. Nold. Anything else?
Thank you, Gabe. Okay, we will now move on to
Yeah.
agenda item number 4, the Facilities Task Force update.
While Dan is getting ready there, I'll just go through a little bit of the agenda that we have here today. And so obviously with the child nutrition update, that's relevant very much so to the start of the year here as some of those new things come into effect or into play this year, and our state is asked to sign off on the letter to approve and participate. Regardless if those changes are made at a national level, we would be required to, but there's a lot that can go into that. So obviously being able to give some of that public feedback on a national level. And it's not that Gay and her team does not want to give the absolute best thing to kids. There's always the cost, and then how are you able to achieve some of those things? What cost does that come at? And obviously they do very well with what they have. We will go through today with the Facilities Task Force update. We're going to make sure that we continually bring this back in front of the board as we go throughout this fall and the first semester here, and eventually bringing that forward to a vote by the board in January or early February. The district priorities will take the largest amount of time today, and we'll go through that, and it's a significant portion of what we work on this year throughout the year. And so that'll take a little more of the time that we'll go through today. And as soon as that part is done, we have some quick updates on the budget and school visits, and then the meeting reports that we'll have throughout this year. And so that's kind of just a little bit of a look at it, but we'll head into the Facilities Task Force update at this time.
All right, thank you, Dr. Knoll. There should be a handout that you have in front of you, a one-page summary of the work we've done. There's one on the back counter for our guests. But if I just took a round trip around the document and give you a high-level look to prepare what we're going to go through today. All right. If you start in the top left corner, the work we've completed, it just gives you a summary of the work we've completed. Then we're going to talk about the initial priority ranking by the task force. We'll talk a little bit about what are our next steps in the process. And when we think about this bond election, what does a successful outcome require? So the things that we talk with are talking points. And then the last piece at the very bottom, I would label number 5 and say, how can the community engage? Because we do need an engaged community. After all, they are our kids. So we look at the purpose of today, just wanted to give you that broad overview of the work completed, the priorities, the next steps, successful outcomes that the task force has put together. And it probably started a couple years ago, but we'll go back to January and when the school board gave the charge. And the charge was about prioritizing our capital improvement plan facility projects. And we had a list of projects that we felt were necessary and needed, but it was quite a long list. And we wanted to put that list in front of some community members. And we want to make sure that it was aligned to our district mission and values, our mission, vision, priorities, the standards, allows us to expand and contract with the enrollment shifts as they come. Maybe it's an increase, maybe it's a decrease. And then also make sure that we have fair and uniform access for all of our students across all of our facilities. That's important. So when we think about it, this is where the process started with the charge by the school board. Sometimes we take our mission for granted, so it's always good to review that. To educate and prepare each student to succeed in a changing world. And then I bring forward our vision. And if you look at the bold part, a big piece of the bond issue, a big piece of board meetings and everything we do is the bold part. If we're going to fulfill our obligation, we have to figure out how to ignite the hearts and minds. Not of our students and our staff only, but the families, the business communities, and also our citizens. So we bring this forward again. And this is where the work of the task force started, as engaged community members. The process, they reviewed and prioritized. So we looked at the city growth plans, projections. We looked at Sioux Falls School District growth projections, so that includes enrollment. We reviewed and prioritized current facility needs, future facility needs to accommodate that growth. We also reviewed projects that may be supported by a future bond. We talked a little bit about funding. And then we wanted the outcome was to present a prioritized list of projects to the board. And we did that back in June. So the goal today is to bring this back forward because we still have work to do. We have work to do with some information sessions that'll be coming up here in September and October, a community survey. We're going to bring it back to the task force, make any final changes, adjustments, and then present a package to the board for consideration. So when you think about the CIP process, it just doesn't happen in years in which we wish to have a bond election or anything like that. It's ongoing annually. So every year we're constantly reviewing our facilities in the fall. We're walking through, we're trying to identify what needs updating, what needs maintenance, what needs support. And part of that is supported with that capital outlay levy fund to make sure our buildings remain in good standing, good structures, regardless of where you live in the city. You have a safe place to go to school. So we involved building leadership. We took a look at the project listings. We narrowed that down to a comprehensive project list that we presented 38 projects in front of the task force. We narrowed it down to 38. Some people may say that's not very narrowing, but we tried to bring it down. And then we presented that to the task force for their review and prioritization. And that's what they were there for. And boy, some of them, the feedback we received was a little bit of a race. They understood the urgency and the timeline, but there was a lot to happen across 4 meetings that took place across 6 weeks. The first meeting, our outline, we talked a little bit about the history and the charge. The second one, we talked a little bit about funding, and we reviewed all the projects, and that's probably the one that was the most intense. When you go through 38 projects in great detail, there's a lot to get to. And that was probably the most intense. The feedback we heard, probably the most, not to say the process wasn't all enjoyable, but one of the most enjoyable things is when we took the task force out and they got to see buildings. So we showed them what Whittier looked like, got to meet the principal, Ms. Palladino Hazlett there. Then we went to Ben Rifle, saw what a brand new middle school looks like. So we got early 1900s, we have 2020, and then we kind of went to our mid-century modern region in Edison and took a look to say, what does that look? And it was very apparent that there's a lot of difference in 100 years in what that looks like and the efficiency of the facilities. So they took that into account as they're trying to place priorities and say, what does the district need? What does the community of Sioux Falls need? The district recently celebrated 150 years. What does it need for the next set of 100 years? So that was our process. We closed with our 4th and final meeting, which was mostly discussion. And we broke the facility members into small groups to try to build consensus on which priorities or which projects would rise to the top. So that was our process. And then we presented that. So I think it's helpful to review a little bit about enrollment and growth in the Sioux Falls School District in the city of Sioux Falls. So 2 things. What's our enrollment looking like and what's the city growth projections looking like? We're at around 24,000 kids. We anticipate that to be the case this fall when we open up, right around 24,000 in K-12. If we throw our pre-K kids in there, we're a little closer to 25,000 as we move up. So here's where our growth areas remain. If you look at the star is the George McGovern Ben Rifle campus in Northwest Sioux Falls. And you see the district outlines where the district can grow, and you see some growth opportunity for housing and families to come in. Then you look over here to the west. This is straight west of Memorial and Discovery campus. Right there, that little spot would be Memorial and Discovery. So straight west of that would be additional growth expansion opportunities. And then right down here, this little pocket is to the southwest of Roosevelt High School. There's about a quarter sectional land there or so that's could be developed at some point in time. When we talk to the city put it in terms of colors. We have the blue color, which says we think it's going to be developed in the next 3 to 5 years, or 0 to 5 years. We have the green tier 2, at least I believe it's green, 6 to 15 years, and they provided us some projections of households, how many people would be in there. And so that was very helpful as the city is talking growth, and it's the city growth as it relates to the Sioux Falls School District. We know that Sioux Falls has grown beyond the boundaries of the Sioux Falls School District in some directions. We have this land that we've annexed in from Lennox. So this is part of the Sioux Falls School District. The big star is Memorial Middle School and Discovery. I would say this is 26th, and the north border would be about 22nd Street as you head straight west. And so we have that opportunity for growth. And they're talking 300 to 400 students in this area, potentially, as we move forward. And so we know on that western front of the city with Pettigrew to Discovery to Hayward, we know those schools are reaching their capacity in enrollments. And then we have this little parcel of land. This would be that 26th and Ellis. This is that same piece that I was just talking about that is straight west of Discovery and Memorial. It just gives you what that track looks a little better with the city's growth projection. And the city projects growth in the next 0 to 5 years, and quite a bit of it, minus the little green in that southwest corner. But this parcel is straight west of Memorial Middle School, between the 22nd and 26th boundary, roughly. That gives you a picture. And you can see the number of households that we're looking at. 860 kids under 18 years in the blue tier, and then we have another 181 under 18 years in the green tier. So there's potential for growth. And then our third growth projection, this is that parcel, Sertoma 41st. You can see Roosevelt in the top right-hand corner. That's that parcel. They're thinking 472. You know, I'm sure it's a multiplier per residential house as to how the city comes up with some of the growth numbers. But this was information they shared with us, very valuable, as to how we might grow in the city of Sioux Falls. So when the task force took that information and pulled it all together, they came up with a priority ranking. And as you can see, the first two priorities up there are replacing Whittier Middle School and building a new Westside Elementary. And those were the first two priorities. On this page, top 18 on page 2 would probably be the bottom half of the list, as they prioritized it based on need and the information that the task force had. So I'll let you absorb that for a second. Again, Whittier, new Westside Elementary at the top. We have the next 3 through 7. We're talking about remodeling the auditoriums at Edison Middle School and Patrick Henry Middle School and doing some CTE education updates with those spaces, which would probably also align with some of the CLC work we're trying to do in our middle schools as well and provide for kids. And then you'll see some updates to Garfield and LBA with a couple of our older elementary schools and bringing those up. And some of those are the interworkings of that. We just need to update some restroom spaces and staff spaces there to bring them up to the year 2027. If I look at the second half of the list, still important projects. I am guessing if you talk to the building administrators and the people that send their kids to schools there, they're like, hey, these are important too, right? So it's hard to say top 50%, bottom 50%. They're all have made it to this list for a reason. There is a need. So right now where we're at with this priority list, when we got the priority list from the task force, right now we're working on that financial impact to say exactly what would that financial impact look like. If you look at the handout in the lower right-hand corner, on the third bullet where it says a successful outcome requires, we're still working. In 2018, when we passed that bond, part of that was we're going to stay below $3 per 1,000 evaluation between the capital outlay levy and the bond redemption levy. And that would be our goal continuing with this project, to remain underneath that $3 per 1,000 levy as we work through it. So our goal is during the month of September, we hope to have that closer to final, and we will share that out in the month of September with our information centers sessions at Whittier Middle School, the last Wednesday in September, and also Memorial Middle School, the first Wednesday in October. And I'll have those dates up here in a second for you. So to review or recap real quick, if we go down memory lane, our path has been January 26th, the first month of the year, and here we are 8 months later or 7 months later on August 24th, and we were kicking off this task force. And we were wondering how many community members might be interested. Our task force was 30 community members strong, and we had to select those out of 140 applicants. So there was strong interest. And our goal in selecting that was making sure we had all the neighborhoods in the Sioux Falls School District represented, so it wasn't just one area, because we know this is all Sioux Falls. So we want to make sure we had that diverse representation throughout our neighborhoods, and then we also wanted individuals with a broad background. We didn't want all the same type of it. We wanted a broad, diverse background of people. Because at the end of the day, it's our community, right? And we need to have that broad stakeholder input. We had our task force meetings, as you can see there, and on June 6th, presented the preliminary findings. And at this time, before I show you the next steps, just bringing it back to successful outcome requires. And just kind of going through that list again. This is going to end up in a bond election package that addresses the city growth and school enrollment trends for our facility needs of the district. We want a clear vision of the scope and cost of each project and the financial impact on taxpayers. We want to make sure we maintain fiscal accountability. We want to make sure we're at or below that $3 per thousand levy on property valuation between our capital outlay levy and what would be 2 bond redemption levies. We want to make sure that we provide consistent factual answers about why each project is included. We want to make sure we're active listeners. We need to hear from the community that collects feedback to shape that final proposal. And we want to have trusted community voices sharing out accurate information and encouraging participation in that bond election. So we bring those forward as we say what our next steps are. And moving forward today, obviously we're presenting the information here. We're going to pull the task force together here in mid-September somewhere, and we would like to share whatever the financial impact may look like, bring it to that group and get their feedback. And then our goal is on September 30th, that Wednesday at 6 o'clock, share it with whoever wishes to show up at Whittier Middle School. And we'll be in the auditorium at Whittier Middle School. We want to share out the information there. And then a week later, October 7th, we want to make sure we share it out on the west side of town at Memorial Middle School. And we'll do it in their auditorium to share out the information we have. And once we've shared out the information, we want to send out a survey to all of our constituents and make sure we receive some feedback. We're going to take the feedback from those 3 pieces, have a task force meeting in December, bring them back together and have conversation. This is what we heard from the public information sessions. This is what we heard from the survey. Do we need to adjust, tweak, modify the priority list that we bring forward to the school board? And then in January 25 at I believe it's a work session, we'll present those findings to the school board and that recommendation. And then we'll ask for an action somewhere there for a bond election date, which we would set in April of 2027 to bring it to the voters. And so those are our next steps. And we talked about, again, what a successful outcome looks like, because it's not just the Sioux Falls School District. Our district name starts with Sioux Falls, right? So it's all of us together and how we make this a thriving community that it has been for many, many years. This slide, that is the lower right-hand quadrant on the handout for your reference. So we asked this: how can the community engage? Listen, show up and listen, right? We invite questions, we invite concerns. We also want to help uncover any information that needs clarifying. So we would invite that. We can do it through our Let's Talk OnFlow platform, where you guys can submit questions that you have. Through that platform, you can show up at our information sessions at Whittier or Memorial. That brings us to the participation. Give us your feedback through the survey. Attend an information session. And then share facts. Engage in conversations to explain the process, highlight priorities, and inform others about the scope of the bond package. And that leads to successful outcomes. And that's really what we're looking for, is an engaged citizenship, engaged community, engaged constituents. In summary, I've got 2 slides left, but again, 30 community members of your peers from a cross-section of neighborhoods throughout the city of Sioux Falls, cross-section of backgrounds. We met 4 times. It was a race. I shouldn't say a race, but boy, there was a lot of stuff happening. It was a good experience. We did offer a survey to gather that feedback, and that was a lot of it. Boy, it felt like it was going pretty fast, but it was a really good experience and we valued it, is what we heard. They reviewed the projects. They identified the replacement of Whittier Middle School and a new elementary on the west side as the top priorities. And then we've also identified Edison, Patrick, Garfield, and LDA projects being in that next tier of projects that would have made themselves up into the top 10. So I bring you back to our next steps one more time. So this is the pathway forward as we head through September and get our task force back together again, and continue to mold or shape this project so that it represents the needs of the Sioux Falls community. At this time, I would open up for questions that the board has.
I thought you were going to read through this next time. So I'm kind of glad you did.
I'm usually
Wait to see
solid
how
on
you're gonna
learning
handle that,
criteria on the
Dan.
front, and I can really summarize the criteria on the back.
You did a good job.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Dan.
Okay.
If there's a different slide you'd like to have ended on, I'll put that up there too.
Oh, we've been at this for a while. Okay, well, something that's just so impressive is honestly the process in and of itself, in that we didn't just go out to the community and say, here's a proposal, but we instead used the community to come up with a proposal based upon what our needs are. And just want to send a thanks out for you, Dan, as the leadership from our leadership group, for spearheading that. And then number two, the stakeholders that gave up their time to be part of it and to feed back to the school board the decision that the community has come up with.
And I would echo that. A huge thank you to the 30-member team that gave up 4 Wednesdays in the spring when school's winding down. There's a lot of things happening. And also our 3 chairs with Tony Erickson, Mickey Lundeen, and I'm going to...
Natalie.
Natalie Eisenberg. I knew I was going to get there. So a shout out to our team. Yes.
Don Marie has a question.
How are we equipping those 30 people to be more of our advocates as we gear up for a bond vote? Is there like a plan to have literature for them to be able to go out to people? I know I was talking to Dan Kipley, who is on the task force, and he's ready to go to all of his breakfast groups, which is so fantastic. But is there a way for him to have some sort of pamphlet so he can speak properly about it and have the right information?
So our first piece is having this 1-page information sheet that we can share out when we gather to them. But also, our role is to provide facts of that project and then have some community partners that would help us out in that arena. And so it's going to be, we've had some conversations, but there'll be some community members that'll come forward and spearhead that charge of making sure the vote gets out and having that. But the first thing we can do when we meet with them again is start getting our 1-page handout out that shares the factual information as to what this process is. Dr. Nold, anything you wanted to add to that?
We'll work to bring them back together, that task force again, just to be able to see some of the where we're at right now in the process and to see those next steps. Also to look at, after we share that with the board, what the funding could look like to get their feedback on that. And then obviously they come back together that December 9th to give it another final sign off before it goes to the board. So to keep them actively involved to make sure, and in the meantime, we're also talking with groups, but there will also be groups from our community that will take that lead.
Yeah, and we don't have a proposal yet to go back out to the community to do that kind of advocacy. So we are still very much taking input. There's no proposal that is being presented to the community at this point. We still have important next steps to do before we even activate feet on the ground to move approved proposal forward.
Yep.
What time are the 2 meetings?
The 2 meetings will start at 6 o'clock
Okay.
on September 30th and October 7th.
Is that getting shared through any sort of channel, or how is that getting out? for
Yep,
people
so
to share?
we'll do some mass messaging, but I believe Dr. Nold has a pamphlet that was mailed out to all of our Sioux Falls School District community members, and inside that, if you go to the back page, I believe, it'll say it on there. I saw it on there. Yep.
It does have both those on there, and we'll send out, because this document, this flyer goes out to all households within the Sioux Falls School District. So every single household that resides in the Sioux Falls School District, we send this out to, 80-some thousand that we send out. And so that'll have the dates on there, plus then we'll start to do messaging out to the families through our communication system. And absolutely, we want to make sure that our community knows what it is, because it impacts them. And we continue to go back to, and we'll say it multiple times, that our communities own our schools. And so if they want this to go forward, they will take the lead on this, because it will impact them and their children. If our community does not, then obviously we will know that as well with the vote. But exciting things that'll happen to make sure that our kids have the best experience possible with their education.
My thing is, my thing is more kind of a housekeeping thing related to those 2 information sessions. Can we put those down as optional board, attendance things? So if 3 of us show up, we don't want to get hung up with the
Yep.
open meeting law.
Good job, Gail. That's absolutely
And
understood. All
We'll
of
get it
you
on
are
there. If it's
invited.
not already, I thought it was, but if it's not, we will get it added. Yeah, we'll get it added. Great
And
point.
reiterating a 6 o'clock start both evenings, and right now they're scheduled to be in the auditoriums of Whittier and Memorial Middle School.
I think those were out in
Good point.
what Alicia put out.
Yeah.
And good to have it out again and on the,
If they were not
So
on
thank
there,
you.
though, we'll get them added.
thank you. No, it's okay. It's still, redundancy is a good thing.
Thank you, Mr. Conrad. We'll continue to keep the board apprised of the information as we move throughout this process. At this time, if President Kelly, you'd be so inclined, we can take a short break, a 5-minute break, and then come back in, and we will start with the district priorities. When we hit the district priorities, we'll have the academic piece go, our student success, and then we'll take a short break after that because that'll be the most significant as far as time-wise. And so we take a short break now, and then we'll come back with the district priorities. Now with the district priorities, and the district priorities are obviously the goals that we set as a district to be able to carry out through this next school year. And many of the things that you will see in here, you're aware of. There's a few things that will be added in that are goals from individual departments. And each of those is split up into 5 different areas. And we will start with the very first one. Dr. Zeke will go through, which is with the student success. And so as you go through this, if you have some questions, he'll hit on the information, then he can go back and answer the questions at the end or the conclusion of his section. And then we'll go to the next area, which would be Mr. Conrad. So we'll start with Dr. Zeke.
Thank you, Dr. Nold. I'm real excited to present this academic success initiatives because it's the beginning of school and I've been to so many PD sessions already. There's so many good things happening and it's amazing how it gets organized. Actually, just in this room this morning, there were about 70 middle school teachers who were going through clarity training. And then once that was over, Chad came in, people helped out, moved tables, moved chairs. It's amazing what happens around here. So my slide is academic success. And this is a table of contents and overview. I'm going to talk about response to intervention. This is a multi-year project in the works. Probably looking at 2, 3, 4 years, and we can probably double that, and it'll be a lifelong work, but it's still a work in progress, breaking down those silos. I'll talk more about how we really work to help all students succeed, no matter what skill level they're at. We are also expanding learning pathways for students, all the way up from beginning in kindergarten, all the way up through and beyond high school. Targeted professional learning for as many groups that we can, and we really focused in on clerical and specialists this year. I'll talk about that. We have a big effort in reading achievement and increasing that reading achievement and all the things that we're doing across the district. And then the final slides will look at our rigorous curriculum and instruction by focusing in on those current curriculum studies that will be taking place. Beginning with response to intervention. One of the first things that we have is to optimize and expand the data analytics tools. This is also known as the DataViz product we have at Infinite Campus. Back in my day, we used to have to come all the way to IPC, sit in a room, and they'd have dot matrix, and you'd have to take off those, those little perforated parts and look through all of this antiquated data. Now teachers have and administrators have so much access to data, and our team with Doug and Nicole out at the assessment office really are working hard to listen to buildings and say, what do you need? And then they build those tools. One of the tools they're building right now, and it's just in the development phase and they're rolling it out, is an early warning detection system for secondary students so that you can look at a dashboard and it rolls up those kids in those buildings to say, here might be some at-risk kids. Maybe it's looking at test scores, maybe it's looking at academics. It puts it all together, it gives a composite, and then they know who to begin to intervene and work on. I mean, we never would have even been able to have that data back then. And now we can use that to help with some of the other things that we're working on. When we're looking at creating and refining standardized general and special education problem-solving tools, after you use those DataViz products, you're finding out which students might be at risk. Well, now it's time, if it's severe enough, what are we going to do to help them? What conversations are we going to have as a team? What we do is we've designed these tools for traditional students, for special education students, EL, and even early childhood, that when they're identified, what will the team talk about? There's a list of questions and data sources that they prepare for the meeting, and it just helps guide the conversation around where students at, what needs do they have, and how we're going to intervene. And then we are looking at building and maintaining a comprehensive inventory of evidence-based interventions. This is probably the most difficult part. When we look at behavior, there are some 3 or 4 buckets that you can put kids into and give them that intervention to see if it works. 80% of the time it should work for most kids and they get back on track. But with interventions in academics, there's so many nuances across so many standards that makes it a little bit more challenging. But we're on that effort, and again, this will be a multi-year effort as we begin to dive into our RTI process. The next slide talks about pathways for future readiness. When we look here, this is really exciting. I've got 2 slides on this because there are so many. The first one is a steering committee that just met, and we're looking at expanding the junior kindergarten program. Currently, we have Junior Kindergarten Academy at 2 sites and then a 3rd site, and I'll explain. Robert Frost and JFK have an academy model where they take 5-year-olds, and half of their day is with a classroom teacher working on academics. Then they switch to the other half of the day where they work with enrichment specialists, and they're working on social emotional learning, play, appropriate school behaviors. Our site at Terry Redland this year will play around with the notion of what does a junior kindergarten full day look like? That teacher all day, and we're playing around with the curriculum to try to fine tune that for next year, because our steering committee is investigating best practices for a junior kindergarten model that can be scaled up. Maybe we look at about 10 to a dozen schools for next year. What do we do for marketing coming up? There will be a board meeting in November, maybe a work session, March, one of the 2, and sharing the information that the steering committee has been working on to help inform the public so they know that opportunity is there. We'll also develop screening tools so that we know students who may qualify, and we'll give them a nudge for that program. Because we know that some of our students come to us not quite prepared for kindergarten, and this gives them an on-ramp to be prepared and to be leaders once they get to kindergarten. And we're also looking at a CTE pilot at George McGovern and Whittier. And let me tell you guys, this is so exciting. Both principals were in with some others, and we were in a think tank. And what they're doing at George McGovern and at Whittier to help students who may find traditional classrooms not to their liking, but this gives them an opportunity to explore some things that they might want to explore. Let me give you an example. Like George McGovern is really going to focus in on entrepreneurship. So they'll have their class, entrepreneurship, go into a bunch of different areas. So what does it mean to be a good entrepreneur? Then they also have the Boys and Girls Club after school. We're working with Rebecca Wimmer, Paul Kaiser and company to be able to make that link into the after school and expand that even more. Whittier has a different model. So it's nice that 2 different schools came up with different things. They have more of like components where they will talk about and learn about psych, law and order, child development, marketing, entrepreneurship, and podcasting. So they've got these modules that they'll work through that they're developing along with field trips and speakers. It should be really exciting. I can't wait to get over there and visit. That's what we're doing at middle school with a CTE pilot this year. At the larger CTE Academy, we're looking at expanding that access. We have a great program. The barn is opening up. I'm not sure if there's a barn cat out there yet to chase away the mice or what animals will be coming in, but also when you look at agronomy and tractors and planting, I mean, the opportunities for just that, plus the health and the culinary, architecture, engineering, I mean, on and on and on. And how are we captivating kids in our traditional schools so that they get that commercial and say, that's someplace where I want to go. So we'll be looking at that enrollment and doing some things this year to help out and increase our CTE enrollment. Next up is the Middle School Community Learning Center as we continue to grow funds, and Rebecca Wimmer is out working with the public to be able to fund the CLC program. We are going to expand Patrick Henry Middle School to a Tier 3 like George McGovern, where they stay at the school until 8 o'clock. They'll have SAM transportation home. They'll get a meal there and a snack after school. And instead of going to that partner agency after, and George McGovern is right there with the Boys and Girls Club, but Whittier's, or I'm sorry, Patrick Henry is going to expand into Tier 3 this year. And then I'll do this slide and entertain any questions before moving on to the next ones. Pathways for future readiness. We also have the para and cyber apprenticeship programs. Here's a little bit about these. First of all, we're looking for teachers. We have a teacher pathway program at our high schools. The apprenticeship program is where they're paid by the Department of Labor up to 5 hours per week to be an ESP, to help support in the classroom. We did that last semester for the first time ever and had about 20 students. I anticipate that's going to grow as it catches on and we figure out how this all works. We also have a cyber apprenticeship program pathway for them to be paid up to 5 hours a week for working either in our district with building computer specialists or maybe at an industry partner out in the field. We've yet to have anybody in that, but we're excited for the growth and the opportunity to be able to reach out to business partners and see that grow. They also earn credentials with coursework as they go along, so it's not just I get paid for being an ESP. So they're working on that. Then we have the exciting partnership with Junior Achievement. We're helping all middle schoolers learn. Over in the center rooms today, they were training for 6th grade BizTown. So that will be coming up for 6th grade, and we're rolling that out through the entire 6th grade this year. Last year it was just a pilot at Memorial. We also have 7th grade JA Finance Park and 8th grade JA Inspire, and high schools JA Career Exploration Fair, all designed to help with the finances and the budgeting and the economics to provide kids with these experiences. Then we're moving into the PAYS Lab. You may have heard about this out at the Learning Lab out at Southeast Tech. We had a board meeting out there. That is, the PAYS Lab is 268 workplace simulations. They focus on business and marketing, computer technology, construction, production, and customer service. Basically helping kids from 18 to 21 with their skills to build independence and to grow into areas that they would want to explore when they grow up, and pushing them in that direction. And then the Transcend program, which is also out there, it's a little bit different. It focuses in on time management, interview prep, personal finance, and navigating the community for those students with disabilities ages 18 to 21. Fantastic opportunity for them to learn and grow. Before moving on to professional learning, I pause because that was a mouthful. What questions do you have thus far? Or comments?
I'm really intrigued by this at-risk early detection that you mentioned. I'm wondering if, maybe this is going to be a big question. I'm wondering if you utilize like ACEs or Maslow's hierarchy of needs to be a part of that assessment. And if you haven't, would you consider it?
Well, I know it's not in there now because it's pulling from data that we have in Infinite Campus in our data lake. So we wouldn't have that, but that's something that we could talk about and explore. I'm not sure how that would be done with the hierarchy of needs.
Well, I mean, it's really the first line of defense, right, is making sure you have stability in housing and safety and security. As we know, a child's brain really struggles learning math when you don't have a safe place to go home to. So that would, I would think, be a number one indicator of those that might fall behind from the beginning. But we should have that identified as an unhoused option if that's in their Infinite Campus. So it might be there. It's just not in the line of the pyramid yet. I'm saying yet because I think it would be really fantastic to have a part of that.
Just to kind of piggyback on that, I was wondering about that, because it sounds like you're talking about at risk academically versus at risk maybe behaviorally, but how do those intersect, and do we look at them as one thing? Mm-hmm. And because one affects the other,
and they do have it both together, the academics, attendance, and behavior, all the way down into our low-level slips that we would use called Swiss data, all the way up to our office referrals, which would then go into Infinite Campus.
It'd be interesting just to see that.
I know.
Right?
You'll have everything you will see as one of the goals will be presented, and we'll go through this a little bit later on, all the board reports. Almost every goal is is going to find itself be able to be presented in a board report. So we'll go through the data vises that we've created. Now, I won't be able to go through some of the specific data because obviously that involves seeing a student's information. But to go through with our group that's been creating those, now it's probably a difficulty that our teachers just have so much information and our student success teams have so much so that we can define that and break it down to these are the most critical pieces. And so to have that early detection piece of it, but they'll talk through, and one of the board reports is to go through the data viz productions and what's come from that.
I think if we could even just see like a dummy account or something,
Absolutely.
that would be great.
Yeah. So it kind of gives you an idea of how and those student success teams use that information to identify kids. But with the technology we have now, but yes, that will be one of the upcoming board reports that we will have. Might be a work session. I can't remember.
I had a question about staff.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be able to cover it. I mean, we have to hire a large number, few,
For the data viz or for,
this whole plan we're putting in the programs.
oh, are you talking about junior kindergarten?
Or
So if you look at junior kindergarten, as would we have to hire more staff? If we look for teacher, the answer would be no. Of course, we want to keep those classrooms with identified students in junior kindergarten at that 18 to 20 mark. One thing that the steering committee will really look into is what is the average recommended size. But it's not hiring new teachers, it's using existing kindergarten teachers or existing staff that we have to move into those positions. Because instead of being kindergartner, you'll be in junior kindergarten, so that would leave a gap. And then as they move up, that gap would continue to go until it works its way through.
Is that steering committee just internal?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Any other
If not, I'm going to keep moving on. Professional learning then, we're looking at that response to intervention. I won't belabor that anymore, but we're really looking at tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Tier 1 instruction is that classroom instruction, regular traditional classroom instruction, maybe with a little bit of support. Tier 2 is when you've been identified, maybe through that data viz, you've been an at-risk student and you need a little bit more support. And tier 3 really is when you need extensive support. That's more of a one-on-one or a one-on-two model. And what we're really doing is we're looking at certain aspects of that right now in RTI. Our team makeup. We have teams at each building in academic and behavioral that has a tier 1 support. So it's our tier 1 tier 1 RTI team looking at what do we do with best practices in our buildings for RTI. They have a common agenda and they have consistency in all classrooms. And we have reflection tools where you can self-assess yourself as a teacher to see kind of where you're at and what you're doing. So we're really trying to dig in there and help support even the teachers and the buildings and their teams to help make sure that we're as consistent as possible across the district. We are, like I said, we're expanding clarity practices for 2 or 3 years. Am I on the right slide? There we go. Okay, yeah. Sometimes I get ahead of myself, like an auctioneer. We have clarity practice. Like I said, middle school was in here, about 70 staff members. We're really focusing in, what clarity is identifying student learning and helping students to identify where they're at on the learning continuum. For example, I tell this story. There was a cute video today of a kindergarten girl, and they had 10 pictures across the room. There were writing samples. It was anything from kind of just scratched on the paper and maybe drew a person with stick figures to all the way to the end where you have actually a written paragraph and a picture that described, maybe it was, I love my cat and we play in the house. And they had this girl describe this and she goes, well, kids right here, they're learning how to learn. And then why don't you go to the middle? I said, well, in the middle, here you can see we have a string of letters and they're trying to sound out the words, but I don't see any words. There's just a bunch of letters. And then here, this one's mine. I'm a 9, and I want to be a 10. And in a 9, I am, there you can see my word cat, and I have letters, and I have spaces, and I have a period, but I really want to be 10, and I need to do this to get to 10. So do you see how building clarity as a teacher and helping kids in a kindergarten example? Now, this was a middle school group. So then she immediately went to a middle school example, and they went, aha, we get it. So lots of things like that. Here's what's best. With these clarity practice, practices, there's a lot of things we already do well. So we're doing a lot of these, and we're just saying do more of those. Plus, let's help the students co-construct that success criteria for your learning. Lots more on that. I'm sure there'll be a board report or a work session coming up on that. When we look at supporting the clerical, we did something different with the clerical and specialists this year, more of a conference session. You get to choose your session, plus there's like keynotes, and they really like that. They had about 95% positive rating for this. There was one downer that maybe the lunch wasn't that great, but I mean, we'll work on the sandwiches. When we're looking at high yield balanced assessments, we're looking at that BAST Part 2, the Balanced Assessment Team. We're coming out with a framework and a glossary, and really that's for building teams to calibrate the system in the building, and it's for us as district leaders too to calibrate our district and use that same glossary. It's a follow-up from BAST 1 where we added assessments and revised assessments or took assessments out. And then finally, artificial intelligence. Move on. Okay, you do want to know about artificial intelligence. We are going to begin in elementary this year. This will be the first year, and that will be incorporating some lessons, some guidance with teachers embedded throughout their director called meetings through the year. Best practices for teachers, watch outs for students, ethical behavior, that types of thing. And we just finished with some high school in-service sessions where they were also focused on the same thing of the ethics and what's best practices for a teacher to implement and what should students be doing. And middle school has some real experts, and they're going to be drawing out some choice sessions this year through their in-services. So we've got fabulous things going. We still have our teacher work group, and we have our district work group and our teacher user group. The difference is the district work group oversees the guidance document that we have on the internet and lots of choice options. The user group is where we teach the teachers some things, and we send them out in the field, and in the second quarter they come back and they say, here's how this worked, or let's do more of this, or let's do less of that. So all of that's working out really well. When we focus on literacy and achievement, we have a very strong emphasis on that in the Curriculum Services Department. We are in the 4th year of implementing UFly, and that means that we have K, 1, and 2 all fully implemented this year. So we're really focusing in on those phonemes and phonetic awareness and encoding and irregular words, really the science of learning how to read. And one thing we're playing around with this year in a pilot is our 3rd grade word origins. That is the intervention part of UFly. So for if some kids in that early warning detection system are caught, we can give them word origins, and we're tinkering around with that at a few schools. And then we have our K-12 curriculum study. That's beginning this year, so that's really exciting. There's a steering committee and then all the subcommittees. It will go through just like a curriculum study would, really focused in, which is really nice because it's the 2nd year of our big ELA grant with the state. So our coaches have learned and grown. This year with the grant, we're focused in on what are screening tools and assessments, and we're growing and developing. Couldn't be better timing. We got a year in advance to kind of learn and grow with PD, flows right into our curriculum study. So we're real excited about that. I'm confident there will be a work session or a board report coming up on that. So much more, many more details to follow. And real quick on our curriculum studies then, we are in the implementation phase for middle and high school and social studies curriculum. If you remember, elementary is in the 2nd year because they got to go a year in advance with the state that purchased all of the materials. So we just adopted and went on board with that. We're in the 2nd year of the math pilot, and then we'll begin PE and health curriculum study and family and consumer sciences, personal finance, and business marketing curriculum studies. So we got a lot of studies going on either in the 1st year, 2nd year, along with the grants. It'll be a busy year, but a fun year. And then I have our progress indicators, which is a review of everything that we just went through. So I won't go through this in its entirety, but if you look at it, then It is our indicators on, are we going to experience growth, or is this a checkoff, we did it, and then we need to investigate how well was it implemented, because it doesn't maybe have an area of growth. So it's just a review of everything else that we've just did with, that I just talked about with RTI, the college and career readiness, and professional learning, and then our reading achievement and our district curriculum initiatives.
The progress indicators are truly how we assess our growth. And so the goals that we have set previous to that we're going to work on, the indicators show how we'll show success of meeting that goal. And so that's the intent of that. And some of it's the implementation, some of it's going to be the numbers enrolled. Part of it just depends on where it's at within the process and the steps on that goal.
Thank you for that, Dr. Nold. I'll just highlight then the college and career readiness. If you look at the first one, increased total student enrollment and course participation, there's a marker that we can track. Did we increase enrollment or did it decrease? So we can follow that. Whereas, did we successfully launch and monitor enrollment with a new CTE pilot at Whittier and George McGovern? Now we can look at the enrollment too, but we also want to maybe get student feedback and teacher feedback on how did we do? Did they really like it? Was it beneficial? Did they didn't? And we can track grades too and see with students. So that concludes mine. Any questions or comments following the second part of my presentation?
I'm just curious about the Smart Lab rollout at LeBeau. If that, I know you're going to measure it this year, but what are your gut reactions?
Well, last year when I visited and we talked to the kids and talked to the teacher, because it was the first year, it kind of was slow in the way we modeled it. Is you have library class, and then the next time you have the Smart Lab, and you have library and Smart Lab. So they kind of went back and forth. And as kids grew in the lessons, the lessons that I saw have the ability to tinker in. They were working on some coding, some thinking, some layering, some stacking. And then all of these projects then ultimately will lend toward the grade level and your interest area, which is really the cool part, because we want to align student interests and abilities with pathways. Because why would I want to do something I'm maybe not interested or not very good in? I can experience it, but if there's something that I really like, let's push you off that way, starting in kindergarten. And we're gonna survey or talk to the kids and find out what they liked and what they didn't like and how we can improve.
I have a more general question, maybe. Well, you talked about AI use and training teachers on best case and ethical use and all of that. But I have a more kind of general question, I guess, about technology use, not only by teachers, probably more so by students in the classrooms, and just what's the thought process, I guess, because I'm all about, continuous improvement and in making sure that we're staying abreast of the best, the newest things, but also not leaving behind the basics that we know work really well and have worked since the beginning of schools. So is there, some balance that you keep in mind when it comes to utilizing technology, but then not forgetting that like just a pen and paper and a book is still extremely effective?
That's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. When we first started to investigate a couple of years ago, we're like, AI, we've just got to get on board because it's going to be here. And so we started to implement as many things, but knew we had to be cautious because that ethical strand has to be the base. What are we doing as teachers? What are we doing as students? And I think as we've gone, we surged ahead. Maybe we didn't reel back, but we became more cautious. And I think what we're doing, looking at students and teachers right now is, yes, how can you use those tools in the right time? How do you not take them all the way? Because I know that's impossible. And how do you not just use them for every single thing that you do? Because then, like a muscle, if you're building, it'd be like going to watch YouTube at the gym. I mean, that's not going to build your biceps. So you really got to break down the muscle. You really got to read. You've really got to think. And you've really got to be curious. And I think the top thing I've learned in the recent months is that ability to question everything. Like look at it and say, is that what I'm really seeing? Is that accurate? no matter if it's from AI or not from AI, because that's a great skill to have. Because if you just take it at face value and say, oh, well, that's it. I've been around AI enough now that say, it's not always accurate. So you got to be able to question everything.
I'm really appreciative of our literature showing, some of our initiatives for literacy. Making more of a comment, I guess, or maybe I'll find a question out of it as I talk, but we just had our rehabilitation task force for the state, and we were talking a lot about literacy rates among our prison population. And there's this number going around about 70% of people incarcerated are at a 4th grade level. And of course, people turn and look at me as like the one educator in the room and are like, you guys need to solve this, not thinking about literally anything else that could have encountered this person's path to getting to that point. So one part of this, I guess I am coming up with the question, when we are doing our services with the JDC, do those numbers count amongst our literacy programming, or is that something separate? And then another piece of that, especially with your risk assessment, is it gonna include that like 3rd grade reading level as a meter, a mark to be like, whoa, we need to check on this kid because they didn't reach that 3rd grade level? It's kind of 2 different questions.
All right, I'm going to answer the first one with JDC. That's separate. They're not, with us. We do hire staff to be in there and to provide them with the education since they're in our school district, but they're not enrolled in our school district. I think the second one you're asking, is there an indicator for 3rd grade proficiency?
Yeah.
And that's, if we use schools, like where might we start with kindergarten, our junior kindergarten? Maybe we'll look at schools with literacy rates where 3rd grade is at a certain level and we begin there and expand. But we know that just having junior kindergarten, there's a whole lot of things to be kindergarten ready. So maybe just not that, but looking at the whole child and the whole picture in order to give the best services to kids to get them to be leaders and learners.
And just like, I'm sure everybody knows about this, but I'm just gonna say it out loud. There's a lot of interest in the Mississippi Miracle. Like, it keeps getting talked about and tossed around. So if we could do our due diligence as a district to get ahead of that and really talk about the importance of working with 4-year-olds versus drawing this hard line at 3rd grade and saying, oh, we failed them, we need to hold them back. Like, that concept has been circulating, and I really want us to get ahead of that conversation and stay true to what Mississippi did, was focus on 4-year-olds first, not just come up with this hard drawn line that's going to impact so many schools and children. So that's more of a statement, but again, I keep hearing it over and over legislatively. So.
Maybe I have a follow-up statement for that.
Yeah,
From
please.
Dr. Nold has an initiative for literacy allies, where we're getting groups of volunteers to come in and help with those U-Fly lessons in the buildings. And right now we're at Annie Sullivan, Terry Redland, and Cleveland to be able to help support those kids in what we would call more at-bats, to be able to get up to that proficiency level by 3rd grade. We'll be looking at and targeting those younger students who are just starting to learn. And really with U-Fly, it's that repetition. You need that classic repetition with that perfect practice. So volunteers will be helping there. We also have an initiative through Promising Futures, where they're going to the zoo and they receive books and they have lessons that are all targeted and moved together to build that connection between things that they like and text that they can read, as well as what the Sioux Falls Area Community Foundation is doing with an initiative through the city to be able to help identify areas where we can be a community of readers. And what does that take? So that's a big mission outside of the school district, but it's a community effort. And we want to partner with them and partner with anybody who is able to help.
Well, and I'll steal everyone's thunder here, but we're well aware of the Literacy Allies program, and the board has actually signed up to be Literacy Allies.
Good board.
So we are on board with that and very excited to support that initiative.
I'd add one thing with going back to the JDC piece of it. those students would be dual enrolled. Our state has a process where it's a dual enrollment. So we would provide the education while they're in a location such as JDC, but they stay enrolled with their home school district. And so if it's a student that is a Sioux Falls School District student, they'd stay enrolled with us, plus we'd provide the services out there. If it's a student from another district across the state, they'd be enrolled. We'd provide educational services as a dual enrollment part, but they stay enrolled with their home attendance center as well, their home school district. And so that home district, whoever that is, would be the accountable party for the academic assessments. Okay, we will we'll go through well-being before we maybe take a break, and because when you're done with well-being, you may need a break.
Our three goals or three initiatives for well-being, and then we'll get into the breakdown of each of those areas. So in terms of student, staff, family supports, the priorities, providing encouraging staff, district comprehensive benefits and wellness resource use. I think Becky had given this is partnering with HR, we gave that report where our largest insurance spend continues to be, or is, or was, mental health at $4.3 million, and our in reference, our cancer spends about $4.1 million in an insurance health plan, right? So how do we make sure our employees are actively or have the ability to access that? There was another number that Becky had shared, 5.4% typically spent on mental health, and we spend about 12.4% on mental health. So how do we continue to put those resources in front of our staff and have that accessible? And that includes a partnership with the Education Foundation, where their team has provided some resources, and a partnership with Avera, as well as the Cook Center, and providing some more mental health supports inside the school. Develop, implement strategies to motivate and challenge students to engage in physically active lifestyle. This would be a pairing with the PE curriculum study that's going to be going on this year. So marrying those two, there's the academic goal and then the well-being goal that is attached. And then piloting a chemical awareness and prevention program at 4 elementaries, 1 middle, and 1 high school. So with all of our pilots, we try to rotate those around through schools. To implement those, Kim Sharping will be sharing out some more information on that on the September 2nd board work session. So I'll leave the big reveal for her as it comes through. Piloting a Character Matters program focused on sportsmanship, accountability, and leadership within extracurriculars. So all 4 of our high schools have signed on. This is another community partner that has come forward that we're working through with our activities. And the goal is that we're emphasizing character, leadership, accountability, sportsmanship, resilience, teamwork, and servant leadership. And so there's a committed pathway in all of our activities that we have that at the high schools. So we're piloting that this year. So we'll have some more information to come from that. And then providing mental health resources to families, continue to do that. So that's part of our Avera Family Forum. We started our 2nd year with the Avera Rooted platform that we've had. So actually our 2nd semester, we should say. We just had 1 semester, so we'll see where that takes us. Our next area, Partners for Success. We want to continue to cultivate those partnerships to expand our pool of adult mentors. Expand college and career access programming to all 4 high schools. So there were 12 advisors that were hired, and it is in all 4 high schools starting the school year, so we want to keep an eye on that. Expand our community learning centers to multiple middle schools. Last year it was at Ben, George, and Whittier. We're expanding it to more middle schools this coming year. Something to keep an eye on. And working with those local agencies to provide access to that comprehensive physical, mental health related services. Like how do we continue to support our staff and our students and our families? The university partner system with our HR team for those career advancement opportunities for support staff. And then expanding partnerships with junior achievement. So last year we piloted it with a Memorial Middle School, and now we're expanding it out to all of our 6th grade students to participate in that JA Biz Town model and what that looks like. So as we grow that out, what does that look like? What are the efficiencies with that? And then the bottom one, drawing a highlight, partnering with the Sioux Falls and the South Dakota Game Fish and Parks for our outdoor native heritage learning space and what that might look like. So we want to make sure we're continuing that project, and that'll be with Anna Broken Leg and myself working with them. So that's in the Partners for Success area for student well-being. And our third area was professional development, student support. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to support that ongoing professional learning and training for behavior intervention, that proactive behavior intervention. You had brought this up with the academic, the data vises and pieces like that. So those top two, that DBST being out in our elementaries and helping to support additional schools, how do we grow that out? And then tie it in with the question earlier about data viz. We have a lot of custom data viz inside Infinite Campus, and we have some different reporting mechanisms that are starting to talk together. And so now teachers can go to a one place and now have that information to say, all right, how do we meet the needs? How are we addressing these? What does it look like? So that ties in where it says streamlined behavior event recording through a single tool. So instead of having to look at this website, this platform, that we're putting in one spot and seeing what that looks like. And then establishing a mentor program for our new counselors and social workers. So that'll be interesting to see how that evolves this year. And then supporting professional learning around web content accessibility guidelines, WCAG, as we call it. This is the initiative or the federal compliance that we need to be in place by April 26th of 2027. So if I can give a simple, maybe oversimplify explanation, as we have our electronic communications, there's new pieces for screen readers and pieces like that. Well, when we don't use official headings, when we don't give text to pictures, when those screen readers encounter that, it doesn't know what to do. And so individuals with low vision may be missing out on that information, right? So how do we have our communication? And that requires a broad training throughout of our entire district, because we all communicate electronically, whether it's our classes online, whether it's our email communication day to day. So interesting to see what comes from that. And my last slide are the progress indicators that are attached to it. Just like Dr. Zeke said, what does success look like? And so this is, sometimes it's, I checked it off, we piloted it, we implemented it. Sometimes it's we've collected data to make our next best informed decision and moving forward. So those pieces from those initiatives and well-being, a variety of those will come forward to you in either board reports or board work sessions throughout this school year. And that would be my last slide. So I'll open it up for questions.
Seeing none, are we ready to move over to? Okay, very good. Well, Gail was sort of feeling like we just took a break. Does anybody else need to go?
my feeling.
I'm open to suggestions, ideas, thoughts on that. Anybody need a break? I'm gonna need a break. Go. All right. Okay, let's take a break. Okay, here we go. We're back at it. Community engagement. This will always be a whirlwind of so many things going on. Deanne, have at it.
Okay, thank you. When I look at community engagement, I like to think that this is the third of the 5 priorities, and we're kind of right smack dab in the middle because community engagement really is reaching into those other 4 priority areas as well. So what I'm presenting here today is a combination of a lot of people's work and just our intentional way that we're reaching out to our stakeholders, asking them to reach out to us. So our initiatives are expanding our strategic partnerships, constantly looking to our community and to all others out in our nearby vicinity who might be willing to collaborate with us to help our students be successful. So that's one of the initiatives. Then showcasing our public schools for our legislators, community leaders, and our stakeholders. Dr. Nold was very intentional about doing that last year with our legislators, but wanting to expand that even further with our community leaders to make sure people have an opportunity to see the good things happening in our classrooms, in our hallways, every inch of our school, and that it's not just us talking about these things, but they too can see them with their own eyes. Engaging all stakeholders in determining our facility projects. You heard a bit about that. And the work that's been done with our task force and the work that will be continued in a bond referendum coming up. Enhancing district communication to increase stakeholder satisfaction, and I'll share a few details with you regarding that. In terms of strategic partnerships, the district is very focused on going out and searching for new opportunities. A lot of that partnership happens in the academic world, but it also happens in our after-school world as well with Rebecca Wimmer, making connections in our community to help support our students outside of the school day. Evaluating current partnerships to identify potential areas for expansion and improvement, and then also expanding and evaluating career pathway opportunities for students that match our community needs. And Dr. Zeke spoke a bit about that earlier when he was talking about the para apprenticeship and also the cyber apprenticeship as well. And so again, really looking at our workforce development needs, what is coming down the pike in terms of needs in the Sioux Falls area for careers, professions, and making sure that we're providing those opportunities to our students to get them connected early and get them into the workforce. Stakeholder listening and learning. Again, just a very sharp focus on utilizing feedback from multiple sources to refine our practices and listening and learning in terms of the task force, going out and really not just hosting a meeting and sharing information, but really hearing what people say, taking that feedback, and then refining what we come up with and present to you, to the school board, because we really do believe that our schools belong to our community. Engaging those community leaders to personally experience the public schools through tours, I spoke on that. Maximizing opportunities for non-parent stakeholder groups to experience the district through programming, community education courses, and the like. One of the examples here is Literacy Allies, which really was brought forth by the Chamber of Commerce and the the Young Professionals Network, and really engaging those young professionals, maybe before they're even parents and have the opportunity to have children in school, but seeing how they can connect to our classrooms and to our schools as well and make an investment that helps them identify the great things happening in the schools even before they have children there. And so really we're trying to build a lifetime of a stakeholder, not just when a stakeholder is when they're a parent, but get them in before they become a parent and keep them long after. And of course, our other mentorship programs are great at doing that as well. We have teammates mentoring, LSS mentoring, and so there are a variety of opportunities where people can come into the building and then also share with us their feedback as well. The Sioux Falls School District experience, this creeps into pretty much everything we do. We want to use the expertise of our staff and our community partners to provide valuable support through information and education to students and families. And so what are the resources in our community that are out there? We want our people to be aware of those resources so that we can share them with the students and the parents who need to access them. We have many great community partners, as was discussed in the Rooted in Schools program, to provide mental health opportunities and such. And those things happen because conversations take place. We explain a need that's out there, and our community partners step forward and really help us figure out how we're going to deliver those services. And that was due to a donation through the Community Foundation. And so some really great collaboration that's taking place, and really, again, sort of reaching into every area and tentacle that we possibly can to help get the support for our students. Maximizing the user experience of the district website and the app by providing some resources and information. Last year, a big focus of ours was getting the student academic list of classes that people can take online, searchable, so that parents could sit down with their students and really learn about, oh, you want to take this class? Let's find out what that actually, entails. And so we did get that up and going on the web. And this year, our counseling departments are all getting better connected to the website as well, so that parents can get those counseling resources at their fingertips. So we'll continue to work at that, offering assistance and training to parents, equipping them with the necessary skills to learn the tools that we are using in the district every single day. It's being a parent, as many of you know, is a challenge. You're supposed to go to this app for this, and this app for that, and this website for this. And, until I became the parent of a college student, well, now 3 college students, I did think that was a little cumbersome, but it's the world we live in. There's all kinds of, you have to go here, and then you have to go there, and you have to go over here. Certainly we want to reduce that and provide a great customer service to our families. But when we have so many different things that they need to use, how can we help train them to really understand what it is you can get when you go to Infinite Campus? Why do I need Bound? Where do I register my child to participate in sports and upload my physical, and all of those complex day-to-day things that are really necessary to help parents navigate and feel confident that they, in fact, did get their child registered. I monitor all of the influx of messages that come through OnFlow, which was previously called Let's Talk, and it's always interesting to me, and it helps me be able to problem solve a little bit about, why are parents, why do they keep asking when open house is? And come to find out, we need to take a step back and do some additional training with our clerical to make sure they were putting it out on their calendar that goes through Bound, so that people know when open house is, and that type of thing. So always kind of troubleshooting and looking to make sure that the customer experience is a positive one. And then Mr. Conrad spoke about the web content accessibility standards, ensuring accessible information and communication for all stakeholders. This, of course, falls within that customer service experience as well, making sure that all people have access to the information that is on our website, is available through a variety of documents. And so our focus on that is really some additional training, and there's a Canvas course that some people, some of our district leaders put together to help train our staff, because really it's anyone who touches a keyboard that really is going to need to know that when they're making a document, that it does need to be accessible. Some of our progress indicators for this area, Rebecca Wimmer is going to be spearheading an effort to establish a partnership framework. Because we have so many partners out there, it's kind of a buzzword anymore. I'm a partner. And yes, we have lots of great partners, and no one is better than another, but sometimes the level of partnership is different. And so what does this level of a partnership mean? What does this level mean? And that's important because we're such a large organization, and it's easy to say, oh yeah, I'm a partner. And a principal thinks, okay, that must be fine to move forward in that direction with this person or that person. So just trying to provide a little bit of clarity toward what kind of partner might an organization be, and what level of involvement, what approvals might need to be made. And so that'll be a work in progress, and one that will probably take some time to iron out. But I've already heard from several principals that they look forward to the day when that might be available to them. Fostering an increased parent community satisfaction through district and school specific communication, conversation surveys. Again, using the tools that we have available to us to really take that feedback and then use the feedback to refine and change and improve our customer service for our stakeholders. Training all staff on the accessibility tools of the WCAG standards. Updating and expanding information on the primary web pages. Again, there's the mention of the counseling pages. Collaborating with our community leaders to establish the Literacy Allies Partnership, and then still focused on increasing our mentors at schools with special attention at Annie Sullivan, Cleveland, and Terry Redland Elementaries, and working with 211 and other partners in that work in order to make sure our students feel connected to another adult in their school day. Up next is staff excellence.
Deanne, will you just stay by for comments or questions in case?
Certainly.
Or can we take those now?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes,
All
go
right.
ahead.
So, Deanne, today I was at Sioux Falls Retired School Personnel, AKA Retired Teachers meeting, and somebody asked me who had been affiliated with Community Campus, long retired, how they would have found out about the ribbon cutting of the new facility on Southeast Texas campus. Not a Facebook user. And so I said, well, I'm sure it would have been on the district website, maybe, kind of, sort of. How would that person have found out?
That's a good question. So typically, well, I can't say typically. Sometimes ribbon cuttings are done by the Chamber of Commerce and the Development Foundation. In this situation, we did not go through the chamber for that particular, because it wasn't a new program. It's basically moving it over to a new location. And they are already a member of the chamber. And there were invitations that went out, the posting of the meeting at the, the school board meeting at that location. But we did have a small number or a small area, and so we didn't open it up entirely to the public. But there were invitations that were sent to those folks that are currently working and working in the past, and I'm not sure how far back they went for that. So that was probably a little a different kind of ribbon cutting than we've done in the past. We worked very closely with the family because it was the Wintrode family being here, wanting to make sure that we had them present when we were doing the ribbon cutting, and also coordinating it with a board meeting as well. So we didn't put it through the chamber like a ribbon cutting normally would have been.
So generally speaking, if someone's not a social media person, are those kinds of community events on our website?
I can't say specifically if that, I mean, it was mentioned, the board meeting was on the website, and I do believe it did.
Outside, generally, our ribbon cuttings would be posted on the website, not this one, because of the fact that we were concerned with the space available and how many people would probably be there, because there could have been up to, and I think there was that many show up, but there could have been easily 70 people, and space-wise, it would have been very tight. But normally speaking, they'd be able to see through the website if we had something as a ribbon cutting for the opening of Ben Rifle, Jefferson, those type of facilities. This one was unique.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Deanne. Your group does an excellent job of covering all the activities we have going on in the district, and we know there are a lot. So.
And keeping some of it very lighthearted.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. Especially Dr. Noel. There was a couple weeks there that I wasn't able to get a hold of him, and thanks to Deanne and your staff, you let us know he was cleaning hallways and
all
trimming
kinds of
yards, and he was busy. Yeah, right. Yeah, he's a miracle. There's no cooking cucumbers.
That's okay.
Yeah, how do you like that? Becky, here you go. We're handing it off to you next.
All right. Staff excellence. Our initiatives really can focus on 3 key areas, and we heard a lot from Dr. Zeke when he talked about the academic excellence area, and that's building the professional capacity of our staff. The next is something I'm more familiar with, and that's the 3 R's: recruitment, recognition, and retention strategies to attract and retain our staff. And then finally, engaging our staff, involving them in our decision-making, and then clearly communicating out how their input impacted the decisions we made. Okay, so under building professional capacity, one of our big focuses is making sure our area in special education, which is definitely a shortage area, we have pathways for people to become special education teachers. A little interesting fact is we had 30 special education teacher positions open this year. That's a low. I mean, so I'm excited about that. However, 17 of the 13 are on a pathway for certification. So that's how important this pathway is in building the professional capacity of our staff. Kirk also talked about the staff development areas for our classified staff this fall when they had some enhanced training opportunities, and then also providing resources for classified staff and substitute staff, just bringing the information to them about how they can become a teacher. I always look into Rhonda Iddings about every 2 weeks has substitute staff training sessions, and I look in here and I'm like, they don't know it yet, but within the next couple years, they could be teaching in our classrooms. So that's really exciting for them to get their foot in the door in our schools and fall in love with being in the field of education. Okay, now under staff recruitment and retention, got a long list here. And we'll start with recognizing our high achieving staff, and that's just not at the district level, that's an emphasis at the building level too, that when people do great things, they're acknowledged for it. The HR department also helps support a milestone program. So anyone from year 1 in the district, they made it through their first year, and then year 5, year 10, year 15, all the way up to year 45, they get recognized every year with a pin and a little thank you note at those 5-year dedications, just to say, hey, we see you, we value you, thank you for the work that you do. A year-round process is the evaluation of our recruitment and retention strategies. How is it working? What are we doing right? What do we need to change? Coming up, we'll be collaborating with the negotiation process because we have the specialist negotiations coming up, and it's been, I believe, 6 years since they negotiated, so they're going to be very excited to be at the table. So that'll be good. We learned last spring, I did a board report on total compensation. We learned how important benefits are to the total compensation of our staff. So we have to make sure that with the dollars we have available, we are giving the best possible benefit offerings. So those are some things we're going to be examining this school year. And then again, this encouraging our substitute teachers and our volunteers to pursue more permanent opportunities in the school district. With staff innovation, this is fostering our spirit of collaboration, welcoming the new ideas that staff can bring forward, and then making sure that we communicate out how these ideas were used by the district, how they now have maybe become best practices, all started from a district employee and the input that we received from them. And this should happen at the district level and then also at the building level. Now our progress indicators. How are we measuring if we're doing the right stuff? First of all, we look at our retention rates, especially in those hard to fill positions where we're putting the extra efforts. Are they paying off? We have to find out how our stakeholders believe we're doing. That involves a lot of surveying, a lot of feedback from staff. And then also, are we doing what we say we're doing? Are we really hiring staff from within, promoting them from within to keep our teaching pipelines full? In other words, how is our grow your own process working for us? Thank you. Any questions?
How long do we track people that left the district or left our employment?
How long do we track them?
How long do you do?
I think I have data back to 2018. So, like why they left, and then if they came back.
So, what's the biggest, in your position, thing that deters people from staying in education? And if it's not, you don't have to. But
no, I think it comes to a point. Sometimes, and we saw this in the board report, the number of people who left the profession pursuing other avenues, whether that might be income related or that could be time commitments. I don't know for sure, but I think that's my biggest fear is those leaving the profession.
thanks.
You're welcome.
I think that what we offer for our benefit our benefit package for our employees is incredible. And I know that there's going to be some work on that, and I really encourage you to, and I know you all will, really consider the employees, because everything we can do to enhance that benefit package just enhances our whole salary package, as you know. One little item, and it really is just related to your job, but gosh, if we could drill into these new teachers' heads that never to touch their SDRS. You put that money in and you pretend you don't even know it's there. And when they're 55 or 58 or 60 and they retire, they'll be very happy that they didn't touch their SDRS investment.
Gail, it's interesting you mentioned that. About, I think it was 3 years ago, we took our new employee orientations. Instead of having one big massive session, we broke it into 6 sessions throughout the summer. We now have a financial planner that comes in during those sessions that talks about SDRS and then also talks about supplemental savings that you can do even if it's $5 a month, how that will help you in the long run. So, thank you.
Well, board members, we are about on the brink of a clarity practices of our own, and that is where our district priorities and our budget meet, and how we reconcile that. That is a board member clarity practice.
I think it's best for last, is what you were.
It is. That could be our seminar topic. This is good.
Cameron, I'll go last.
Oh.
That will be the real clarity practice.
So we're
Well,
going
that's
to
our new
just go
buzzword,
through
clarity
the
practice.
effective use of resources. So there's kind of four main areas. One is facility use or facility needs. The other is transportation, child nutrition, and then just being fiscally responsible. So those are the four key areas in this one. So for future facility needs, we've already talked about this. A lot of mine is going to be interesting. It's going to be things that have been brought up during this work session. We are going to reconvene the task force here in the fall of 2026 and hopefully review that process so that we can get to a bond resolution vote in the spring of 2027. We will then also develop, once it's passed, once the bond has gone through and we have passed the bond, we have to have schedules for those projects. So that'll be a big undertaking of when will they happen and what ones will be in what order. So that's going to be a large process. Some of these you'll see have already been completed towards the beginning of this year, like complete the construction of the CTE Ag Wing for the fall of 2026. It's now done and ready to go. And then collaborate with community partners to determine the scope of Howard Wood Field renovations. With us hosting state track pretty much every year now, at least for the foreseeable future. There's a lot that goes into that, and there's some different items that we think could help make that better. And we're kind of thinking of how we can help with that and have community partners help with that. And there's some different discussions in the works right now. Next would be the transportation. District will work with vendors to allow alternative methods for students to scan onto buses. I think a major frustration right now is kids lose their bus pass. And then how can they get on the bus, or how can we scan them in, especially in the middle school level? One of those alternative methods right now, they're actually looking at a way to be able to scan it from their phone. So students could have their bus pass on their phone. It's going to take some different readers, but Missy's working on that right now, and we think that'd be a huge help, especially in that middle level. Yeah, we're not worried about them losing their phone. Next would be just working with the assessment office. Missy's always working on different bus pilots and different options of ways to be more efficient or save money or just all kinds of those different avenues, and we're trying to see how effective those are. And then educate and encourage families that they can use Sioux Area Metro. It is a busing system that's available for them, especially for high school students, and how we can get that information out to them and make it more efficient and more practical for those students. And then improve on-time performance. This is a carryover. We always want to keep improving on on-time buses and reducing the number of late buses. I think that was probably on here last year, and it'll probably maintain and keep going. We want to keep improving on that every year. Next is child nutrition. A lot of this is going to seem familiar after our report to start today. We want to continue to improve the quality of meals for elementary students by preparing hot food at 6 nearby high school and middle school locations. So she's preparing the food at the locations closer to those elementaries, so it's not as long as transportation in between to make the food as fresh as possible. Pilot a food choice option for elementary students. She talked about that, how we will have a second option at one of the elementaries, and then in the breakfast also we're going to have some different protein heavier options and different hot items. Communicate changes regarding the free and reduced or the reduced price meals. It's now covered by the state. We actually are changing the policy on that. It used to say we would cover it, but the state is covering that reduced price now. Continue delivering exceptional customer service where all students feel welcome through staff development. That was talked about today. She has different sessions, training staff. We want students to feel comfortable coming through the lunch line and feel like it's a service to them. And then review the updated food pyramid. This is kind of what she talked about with the Make America Healthy Again. They want to flip the food pyramid almost upside down with higher protein, which I think we all would agree is awesome, but how can we implement that and still afford to do that? So those are just kind of what we're going to be reviewing through this year. And then the last one is fiscal responsibility. We just talked about the benefits. One of the processes we're going to go through, and we just had our health insurance committee meeting on Thursday, and they were all for moving forward with this. We are going to have an RFP process for our health insurance broker to look at what brokers are out there and maybe make a change depending on what results we get from that, and then go out and see what options are out there for our health insurance. So it could result in we don't make any changes, or it could result in we make some changes that are better for the staff and district. And then this one actually just completed. I won't go too in depth into this because it's the next item on the agenda, but we did a bond tender process and it was successful and it will reduce our debt. And I'll go into that in the next item. Develop a capital outlay bond redemption funds blueprint to fund the replacement of Whittier and the new west side, the elementary, and all of those projects. So it's kind of like we talked about, we'd like to keep that levy around the $3 amount, and how can we make that happen, and how much of that will be capital outlay dollars and how much of that will be bond dollars. And we're well into that process already. Actually, we got some models last week of what that levy would look like at certain amounts for the bond. So we're just getting into that. And then lastly, we want to uphold favorable comparisons to both local school districts and national peers. In our area, we were actually 10th out of 11 for cheapest property tax levy last year. We want to maintain in that bottom quartile there. So just with my progress indicators, we had ensure efficient facility use. We want to have that increased participation in our summer and after school programming and use those facilities as much as possible efficiently. Decrease the number of bus route delays that are over 10 minutes. Boost student lunch and breakfast participation rates, and then continue to achieve that top quartile ranking for lowest homeowner property tax obligation in the surrounding area. Even with the new bond, we want to stay in that lower quartile. And then increase opportunities for saving through the bond tender process, which we just completed. And then last will be what's kind of our next step here is doing that health insurance RFP. That is all I had. Any questions for me?
I have a question. How do you plan to measure for the decrease in the number of bus route delays over 10 minutes?
Missy can track all of that. We get reports on that.
Okay. The reason why I asked that is that I'm hoping they're looking at existing routes and not having to take away the convenience of parents to make to change up the bus routes so that they're within, that they're being measured because they're taking one off that just may be trickier to get to and what it may create for a family. That's all. That we're continuing to keep the accessibility of the bus routes and using, that's why I asked how they're going to find those measurements. Does that make sense?
Yes, I don't think there would be any changes like that. It's just the current bus routes, are we getting better and more efficient running them?
Good.
Having less delays.
Want that out there. That's not a decrease, yes. For example. Thank you for that clarification. Anybody else? Okay, seeing that. Thank you so much, Cameron. We are going to move on to Dr. Knoll. Are you following up with are you going to handle the school visits? Is that, or are you gonna continue budget updates? Okay. It was nice to see some redundancy in your report with what we're saying our district priorities are. We're going to take a little break our technical difficulties. We've got Dawn Marie and Elizabeth.
I am up again. So we have, it says budget updates, but it's almost more of a, we want to celebrate some of the wins we've had just recently. So we'll kind of go back. Some of these highlights are from the budget. We reduced the opt-out by 1.5 million from what we originally expected, which was 1 million less than last year. We had 3 million in savings and reductions from fiscal year 26, another 2 million in fiscal year 27. And then kind of the two new things are the bond tender process and the health RFP. So the bond tender process, this was just completed. Actually, they sold on the 20th and finalized. We have final pricing, final numbers, everything's complete. We wanted to look for any efficiencies and any savings that we can come up with to be fiscally responsible before this next bond vote. So normally, if you have a bond, you would try to go out and refinance a bond. So if your interest rate was high, you would try to refinance it now to a lower rate. Well, I think everyone knows in this market right now, interest rates aren't low. So that option isn't really out there right now. So instead, the person that does our bond, D.A. Davidson, came to us and said, we have a different option that we've tried in other states and it has worked and been successful, and we'd like to try that. And it's this bond tendering process. And actually, it was the first one they've done in South Dakota that was done and successful. So basically how it works is the company, we'll just use easy numbers, might have $10 million of our bonds at a 2% interest rate. They want out of that because right now they could loan that money out at a much higher interest rate, and they're actually willing to sell that back to us at a lower amount. So they might be willing to trade their 10 million back to us for 8 million because they want out of it so they can go get a higher interest rate for someone else to give that money to someone else. So basically our bond council put it out that our bonds are up for tendering, and we had 40% almost of the bonds get participation that wanted to do this process, which was actually the second highest rate they've ever had. They're very happy with how it turned out. So how it worked is, or the results of it is, we actually traded $48,590,000 in old bonds in for $39,695,000. So it was actually a decrease of almost $9 million. So we traded 48 million in bonds for 39 million, roughly. This will decrease our current debt, which is good. Every year we have to fill out a form with the state and how much debt we have. So that's going to help us with bond rating and those items too. And then maybe you would say the bad news is that 39 million now has a higher interest rate than the old 48 million, but in the long run, we're still saving money. The total savings was $2,363,879.55 over the life of the bonds. So you're thinking, we actually were ahead 9 million, why is it only 2? Because of the higher interest rate. But for us, in the next, up to fiscal year 2040, when this bond ends, we will save 2.3 million. It actually equates to about 200,000 a year in our bond payment. So our bond payment after the first year, there's a little higher price the first year, but after that, every year it's over $200,000 cheaper for us. So we'll have a lower bond levy, a cheaper bond payment, which is a win for everyone. So that was a successful process. It is done and completed, and that was just a big win that we had recently that we're proud of and wanted to get out into the public.
Think of it like reverse compound interest.
Yeah, I kind of joked, it reminds me of when you buy a house and they ask if you want to buy points to buy your interest rate down, and you calculate, if I do it, I need to live here for 7 years for it to make sense. I think the bond companies basically did the same thing. How much can I sell back and still go out and get a higher interest rate? So exactly. To me, that's how it made sense to me when they first brought it to us.
And then servicing the debt, it would be the reverse compound interest over time.
Yes.
In terms of the savings.
Any questions on that part of it before I move on to the RFP part?
You'll hear some of this again coming up shortly because it's also, as you can see, a very good news report as we continue to look at ways of efficiencies throughout the district. So we'll talk about that and a few other things at the good news report tonight.
The next thing that we're going to be looking at then is a health RFP process, and that'll be a response for proposals to see if there's, I wouldn't say just better, but maybe different options out there that would be better for our staff as a whole, and that might be looking at better benefits or reduced costs. So we will be starting that where we will RFP for a broker. They will be able to submit their RFP, and then we will ask a board member to be on that review committee. We will go through and read through them, and then we will most likely interview a set amount of them that we determine fit the best by the qualifications, and then we will select a new one, and they will go out, or the old one, it could be, and they will go out and see if there's better pricing or benefits or coverage in the market right now. And then if that's successful, that would change over in fiscal year 28, so the next year. So again, the focus, and we just presented this to our insurance committee on Thursday, and it was unanimously on board. The focus is there better benefits out there right now and helping the employee? We've seen increased costs and increased max out-of-pockets, and can we get that back down? Is kind of where we're looking, while keeping similar to benefits.
I would imagine we also plan to utilize the feedback that Becky gets in terms of the benefits that are priority benefits for the employees.
There'll definitely be a group project going through that RFP and what we're looking for. So then just kind of the takeaways, our goal is to always be fiscally responsible. We continue to look for those efficiencies. The bond tender process is probably one of the biggest examples of that. It hadn't even been done in the States, and we're out there looking for those things and what we can do just to save taxpayers, the district, and staff. And then we just had a lot of good wins lately, and we want to continue to build on them, and we just wanted to showcase some of those and show what's in the works.
Very good. Thank you, Cameron. Two more topics that we'll hit on here before we go to the committee reports of the board members. And so just looking through two pieces, you have those documents. There's documents at the back table as well. The first of which they'll be on there is the school visits. You have a document there that'll highlight the three different types of school visits that we'll be looking at this year. And the first one of which you'd be very familiar with, it's been consistent for several years, but the board member school visits to schools that you would sign up with. Alicia has sent that listing out so you can sign up for those and be able to go to schools. She'll work to mediate that with the school building administration to set that day up. And so those are listed on there. This would be something that has been in place for a while now. The second of which we started last year with the legislative school, or the legislative visitors to our schools, and invited board members. If there's a board member for each one of those who would like to attend, if they're able to. We continue that through this next year and invite again any of those. We're going to have to wait on some of that to see who is newly elected as we complete those elections. But to make sure that we invite those individuals to come in and see our schools. And last time we went probably more towards a 3.5 hours, maybe a little more to that 2-hour time mark for some of them. They greatly appreciated. A little bit of the feedback was just time. And so we'll look at that again, but we want to make sure that they get in there and see classrooms. So that process will be the same. The third thing that we'll reach out to this year, and Deanna had alluded to some of that, was also to get our community leaders in. There's several individuals within our community that lead in this community and do great things. We want to make sure that they see the schools and see firsthand. I think that had a significant impact on some of the relationships we're building with our legislative group that goes out and represents us in peer. And we want to make sure that that same knowledge of understanding of what happens at our schools occurs with our community leaders. And it goes back to, again, with our kids and our future, that truly it needs to be our community that comes around our schools to make sure it's possible for our kids. So just to make the board aware of those three different types of interactions that we'll have, the board members' school visits, the legislative leader school visits, and we'll expand this year to have community leaders come in as well. Probably be accompanied by Dr. Zeke or myself or Mr. Conrad, we go into the buildings with those individuals and maybe even keep it a 1 or 1-2 type of very small group so they can see and ask questions. Those are the school visits for this next year that we're hoping to be able to utilize. The second document that you would have is our 26-27 board work sessions and board reports planning guide. This is not set. We have put them into the document. There's some of which that are still tentative as we're going through and sharing this with the board. Then here in the next couple weeks, we'll share it with our central leadership team who will be carrying out many of these reports. But on that document, you will see the goals that were on our district priorities are listed on there as board reports. So as you go throughout the year, you'll either see them as a board report or it could be a work session depending on how that interaction. Some things it's important to maybe have multiple people present the information so you see a little more in depth. And so we will send this out to you as well in electronic format so that you can blow it up a little bit larger to be able to read it. But it does have the individual that will be presenting. It's not set in stone yet. If there's a presentation or information that a board member would like to see, I can float that across with all board members and see if it's something we can add into the information here as well to share out. So I'd ask that sometime in the next few weeks here that you would get that information to me. Some things will change depending on what's dictated by the state as well. There could be some changes that occur at the state level through the legislative process or mandates that come through that we need to make sure we update the board on. Or even as we go through the process with the bond, we may have to add things in there depending on what occurs and information that needs to be shared out. So that is a tentative listing. Obviously, some of those things we've completed already, many of which will be in the future, and we'll share it with our central leadership team coming up.
And I'd like to ask board members if they could by September 4th, if you want to make any changes or see something different than what's listed here in the work sessions and board reports, to get back to Dr. Knoll, just because if you notice there are dates scheduled and it could impact presenters. So we just want to be cognizant of that. So September 4th, I think 2 weeks would give you enough time. Okay, very good.
Thank you. The final thing I think that we have on there is the board member committee updates.
Okay. And I know we just had our change of who is representing which committees, so you may or may not have even met with your committee at this point. The school year hasn't started yet, and many of your committees aren't meeting yet, but if anybody does have any committee reports at this time. We are ready, Dawn Marie. Very good.
I know.
Yeah.
So much time.
Hang on just a minute. Let me give the timer
Yeah.
over.
No, for real.
We have a process for that.
Well, we had for accessible housing every year since I've been on. They introduced a bus tour to be able to see some of the projects that we talk about all throughout the year. So I was really grateful that I got back on to see the fruition of all the things we talked about the year before. So one of the stops was being at St. Francis House, and the city has designated a lot of money into St. Francis, supporting people who were incarcerated or unhoused to have a space to live. So we got to walk through the women's area and see that Department of Corrections partnership, where they live, and just see their operations of business. The next one we got to see was the Veterans Community Project, which if you haven't been there to see the tiny homes, my gosh, this was so incredible. They only had like 2 units left to fill, but they have a village of 25 tiny homes, 15 individual and 10 for families. And it was just fantastic what they've done in the community space that they've built, the projects that they have, the accessibility, ADA accessible parts of that too for a lot of veterans who are in wheelchairs. So again, if you haven't visited that, I'd love to connect whoever to go check it out, because I think there's a true model for working with unhoused populations that could look similar to that. We got to see 2 different developments where they rebuilt the rehab and rebuild projects, which were insane. They would give us a picture of the old building and what it looked like inside, the crumbling infrastructure. There was just like in the pictures you could see needles from the drugs being used in that home, and it was flipped into something really useful and beautiful for families to move in for low-income housing. And then the Sioux Falls Housing Redevelopment Commission and Affordable Housing Solutions, they just are opening up their, oh man, they have so many projects. There's 178 units, the Rise apartment, maybe I'm saying it wrong. But we got to pull up and see, it's right close to, was it 12th Street and I-29? You can see it from I-29. But we got to see the new space and pull up next to it and see what's going to be opening up. But Sioux Falls Housing provides long-term rental assistance for up to 2,000 households in our area. That's massive. So that was, I said that really quickly. There was way more things that we saw, but those were my highlights. You know, a lot of people, there is a lot of work to do for sure. We have a lot of growth areas that we need to get more people housed, but there is stuff happening within our city. That's really fantastic. All the partnerships that have happened, and there's more coming. So really excited to be on that one. It's a passion of mine. But that was like this is probably my longest report for them because that's kind of like everything coming together in one session. So there was that one. And then I know Cameron just got put on our PATH committee conversation and thread. Once again, I was under the assumption that the crossway by Marcella LeBeau getting built would have been done this August, and it's being pushed back another year. So I have been pushy as I could. I was trying to be as kind as I could. But I might need some muscle, Dr. Nold, because we need that to get done. You're my muscle. It was just disappointing. I thought that was a priority last year. We made it very clear the benefits of having that crossway for our Marcella LeBeau families. I didn't even go into the cost benefit for us, even though I could have. I made it more about safety. But maybe I should have. Maybe I should have had that cost benefit for the city. But so whatever we can do, Dr. Knoll, to showcase the need in that to get done so it doesn't keep getting pushed back, I would appreciate some help on that one.
Our hope on that is actually that they maybe expand it so that, because it goes to one of those kind of circles or cul-de-sacs, but to expand it into some others. And I know Cameron has brought that up to the group.
Yeah.
Very likely
I think you were on that email.
Yeah.
Sent it out and kind of drew a picture of what I thought it would look like. And then it got sent around. It's kind of still in the process, but I did share our thoughts on connecting it to two different neighborhoods there.
Because otherwise they have to walk through some houses to get to the point
path
to go across, or they could just expand that so that it almost webs off and picks up three different areas there, three very distinct areas. So yeah, we're working. I agree.
Cool. Yeah, it's just disappointing because again, it's been, since I've been on this, it's been pushed back every year, and it's like our one ask that we've had so far. So as a reminder, the PATH committee, if any of you get reached out by constituents, families, if they're having concerns with their child being having some unsafe passing by vehicles or an area that doesn't have flashing lights, like that's where you can contact me and I can send it into the PATH committee to go survey it, take a look at it, and make sure it's held up to a standard of safety for our students who are walking to school. So just gentle reminder on that. So those are my two. And that was all within the last 2 weeks. So it's been a little busy, but it's awesome to see things getting done. Very good.
One addition to, you talked about the houses for the veterans out there, and our student, well, actually I'll have Mr. Conrad because he was part of it, but just to give a little bit of a shout out to our students on that.
So I know the first year was open. We had partnered with the Veterans Program with Sioux Falls School District students in the shop class to build them a wooden flag that they gave to each veteran as they entered into their tiny home. And so each student was able to write a note on the back, present it, and then start that conversation strand. So that was a pretty powerful moment. But that's part of our many partnerships and community engagement pieces with our kids.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so often we talk in terms of home attendance centers, and for those that are listening, the unhoused are still part of our responsibility. And that's why we have a representative on that particular committee, because we know a child's academic success is impacted by their by their environment. It also impacts their well-being. To that point, we also have a legal responsibility to stable education, what leads into McKinney-Vento, which we have 2 representatives this year on that committee. So thank you for your work. Good job done, Mike. So on how they're still our students, and we have a responsibility to them.
Oh, I'm on the board of directors with the Associated School Boards, and there has been a lot of new things because of, we don't know where we're going to be in the legislature for the task space or anything else, but we went through all of our policies and kind of firmed those up. And we did some work on some, I don't know what you call it, making friends.
Oh, yeah. Networking.
Yeah, networking. And that seems to be going well. But everybody's up in the air. We don't know where we're going to be. I've talked to a couple of legislators, and they think we're going to be pretty good. That they think that compared to what happened to us in the last year, they had projected for sales tax income, and they went about 20% under what we've taken in. So it's kind of got them in a, who gets the money and where's it go, obviously. The Sioux Falls Sports Authority, their marathon, one of their big things is going to be on. And they had I think they had a record number of people said they're coming, because 2 years ago, they had a huge crowd coming, and then a lot of those people got here and they canceled it because of the weather. I can remember that. It was so hot and so humid, they said, you can't run. The medical board said, you don't run that marathon. So they're kind of recouping from that. They had the curling here last winter. That didn't go so good. I mean, it went good, but it wasn't a moneymaker, I'll guarantee you that. But they're trying to expand to some more things. And I don't know. It's kind of fun to be there because they have big plans and they have a lot of people that are trying to promote it. So it's a good time.
Okay. I did not have any committee meetings, but I did make kind of a more informal visit to Patrick Henry, and so I just wanted to share a couple of highlights from that. They are very excited to get CLC going there and having flag football there and having drone soccer there, which if you haven't watched drone soccer, look it up.
I know.
It's insane and very cool. And apparently there's tons of excitement around it and a lot of kids, because it's kind of a combination between robotics and athletics. So check it out. Yeah. The other thing that I thought was really cool was that both the principal and the assistant principal went to Patrick Henry as students, and they are so invested in just that community of Patrick Henry and every single one of those students and families. So it was really fun to see that, and yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a great year. Sure. Okay, so Gail and I kind of volunteered myself to join Gail on the McKinney-Vento committee, and part of the reason was because we're looking to partner with others in the community to see how we can make those dollars stretch a little bit further. We only get a certain amount of money from that grant to support our kids who, you know, are deemed homeless under McKinney-Vento. And so we're looking for efficiencies in transportation so that we can get those kids where they need to go, and use those dollars as well as we can, make them spread even further. So we're going to just continue down that path and see what can happen.
I will say that Elizabeth and Kim Sharping have been kind of the point people on lighting a fire under the city too, to see what we can do about expanding bus routes or especially getting into that McGovern Jefferson neighborhood, see what we can do to expand lines out there to get kids more direct access to schools, and it's been good.
And it's interesting as you dig into things like this, how many layers there are to it and how many nuances that you think, oh, just easy, just expand that bus line just a little further. Well, no, because that messes with everything else. So I think it's really good to have those conversations and have those people in the room so that you can understand all the elements of it and but yet be open to helping each other.
Yeah, we measure for absentee or attendance, and that also impacts graduation rates. Those are two important measurements at the end of the day. But it's a lot of detail that impacts those measurements. I wanted to make mention, if you're assigned to a committee and have not heard from the point person of that committee, reach out to Alicia and we'll make sure to get you connected. So if you could do that within the next week, that'd be great, so we're not missing out on it. All right. Anything else for the good of the whole?
One reminder, there's photos afterwards.
Yes, that's very good. And, yep, very good. Can I get a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.